Douluo, starting from the spirit of time worm, this video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 401. Awakens. Hukan stood on the high platform, with his hands behind his back, and smiled kindly at Amon. He looked around, and saw his granddaughter Hujia, who was looking at Xiao Meng with a covetous look on her face. His forehead couldn't help but jump. He lamented in his heart, unfortunate family, I don't know where this evil spirit came from, making a good girl like this. Xiao Meng looked around, took out a chair from the ring, sat down as if no one was around, yawned, closed her eyes, and pretended to sleep. She slept a little late, so she is not very energetic now. The space next to Hukan twisted, and the elder Sukan in a black robe suddenly appeared. He looked at the people around the ring, saw that Zhao Mingru and the three testers were already there, and nodded slightly. He asked Hukan, who was standing beside him, does the Vice Dean have anything else to say? If not, why not start the trial? Hukan nodded. Then let's start. I'm also looking forward to the students' performance. A man wearing a light red robe, with a feminine appearance and effeminate behavior, walked onto the stage. He looked at Amon, who was walking from the other side, and smiled charmingly. Junior, after entering the inner courtyard, are you interested in joining us? Join you? Amon looked puzzled. The competition in the inner courtyard is much greater than that in the outer courtyard. You can't get along well alone. The best choice is to form a group. Yao. Sheng was secretly happy when he saw that Amon listened seriously. He felt that there was a chance, so he continued. Our eldest brother Awakens is the fourth strongest person in the inner courtyard strong list. In the inner courtyard, we are also a big force. No other organization dares to say that it can definitely beat us. Naturally, our members will not be bullied casually. The main purpose of Awakens and others to take on this trial was to recruit Zhao Mingru, who was about to enter the inner courtyard. Therefore, Yao Sheng was not in a hurry to start, but persuaded patiently. Sukan and Hukan watched with interest and did not urge them. The ability to treat people is also advocated by Canon College. Amon reached an agreement with Awakens and others to reduce the difficulty of the first two trials anyway. There is Xiao Meng, who is the bottom of the box. She is not from Awakens' group and will not be disturbed by the attitudes of Awakens and Yao Sheng. Amon raised his right hand, touched his monocle with his knuckles, and said with a smile, only fourth. Yao Sheng had a hint of anger on his face, and his voice was slightly cold. Sure enough, newcomers are always full of arrogance, so they need to be tempered. This is also the intention of the vice president and the elder, to set up this trial. Don't underestimate the value of the strong list. When you get to the inner courtyard, you will understand what fourth place means today. Blue energy emerged from his body, and the powerful aura of the 7-star Dowling was revealed, which made Bashan and Hujia, who were watching the battle, change their colors slightly. Is this the person on the inner courtyard strong list? A hint of excitement flashed in Wu Hao's bloodshot pupils. Yao Sheng planned to use practical actions to let the new student Zhao Mingru experience the power of the top 20 on the strong list. Before coming to serve as a trialist, he was informed of the opponent's Dao Ki level, 8-star Dowling, which was one level higher than his own, so he was not careless at all. Of course, he was not afraid. It was just 1 star, and when the difference in Dao Ki cultivation was not big, the level did not mean everything. I agree. Yao Sheng was stunned. Didn't you just disdain the fourth? Why did you agree directly again? Amon smiled and said, I agree to join you. I don't mean to despise the leader, but I subconsciously don't like this ranking. It should be higher. Yao Sheng's eyes were much less eager to fight, and explained, the first and second on the strong list are two monsters. When we usually mention a division of power among the inner courtyard students, we will exclude them, and Lenziawaya, who ranks third, is just on par with the boss. The victory or defeat depends more on the performance on the spot. Stupid, look around. A voice sounded under the ring. Boss. Yao Sheng was confused at first, then immediately reacted and wanted to launch a defensive fighting skill. Too late. 10,000 winds are entangled. Amon had quietly launched the fighting skill when Yao Sheng focused on recruiting him. Invisible air currents bound Yao Sheng's hands and feet. Because Amon reduced the intensity of the fighting skill in order to hide, the binding force was not strong, and Yao Sheng easily broke free. But it was this moment of delay that made him unable to respond to the next attack. Big wind handprint. A green handprint quickly moved forward with Amon's palm and pressed on Yao Sheng's chest. Yao Sheng spat out a mouthful of blood and flew backwards. Falling off the ring. He supported the ground with his right hand, stood up, and after taking a blood recovery pill, he looked at Amon angrily. "You are playing dirty with me?" Amon shrugged and showed a slightly sarcastic smile. "The battle has already begun. You are too careless. Besides, you are not my opponent, so I can't waste too much energy on you. You will be in trouble when we get to the inner courtyard." Yao Sheng's eyes were cold. "Enough. You are not his opponent." A cold and hard voice sounded. When he heard this voice, Yao Sheng lost his temper immediately. A tall man wearing a cloth shirt, with a firm face and thick eyebrows walked in front of Amon. He carried a black heavy gun diagonally on his back. "Bei Koang, Liu King." Looking at Amon, he said in a solemn tone, "Even if you don't use these tricks, Yao Sheng won't be your opponent, right? Why don't you defeat him fairly?" Although Amon's move was a sneak attack, it required extremely strong skills, and Liu King thought he couldn't do it. "Save some energy if you can. I don't want to rest for half a day after a fight. Let's finish it as soon as possible." Amon's eyes were gentle, but gave people a feeling of indifference and condescending. "Do you need to recover your fighting spirit? I'll wait for you," Liu King said lightly. "No, there is not much consumption." Liu King nodded, and then suddenly attacked. The dark heavy spear stretched out as fast as a dragon breaking through the water. Amon was surrounded by breeze, and he floated back like a light leaf. The spear locked his chest tightly. Every time he retreated an inch, the tip of the spear moved forward an inch, as if he would not stop until he achieved his goal. The wind wall became thicker, slightly hindering the spear's attack. Amon slipped and twisted his body like a python. Liu King's face changed slightly, and he swung his spear, and the spear shaft vibrated rapidly, pushing Amon away. He took a step back, retracted the spear tip, and took a defensive position. Amon did not make any further moves, but just looked at him with a smile. On the other hand, Liu King's face was much more solemn. The opponent's strange body movements made him feel uncomfortable, as if he had strength, but nowhere to use it. Zuna, who was off the court, had a hint of inquiry in her eyes. She always felt that Zhao Mingru's body movements were vaguely similar to Zhao Meng's. Chapter 402. The main body is not good at fighting. The battle was still going on, and Amon used his flexible body skills to avoid confrontation with Liu King. Liu King didn't panic, because he couldn't touch his opponent's clothes for a long time, and there was a calm look on his resolute face. While putting pressure on Amon at the same rate, he would take the time to sweep his body around with his spear from time to time, knocking away the invisible wind ropes that had gradually accumulated. "It's useless. Stop playing these little tricks and fight me seriously," Liu King shouted. "I've always been serious." Amon's fighting spirit erupted at his feet, flying backwards at an extremely fast speed. Explosive step. With the powerful recoil, his figure suddenly jumped into the sky, and a pair of cyan wings condensed behind him, vibrating and flying into the sky. Fighting energy turned into wings. Liu King's pupils shrank, and a trace of horror flashed in his eyes, but soon he calmed down and said, "No, it's not." The Great Elder Sukan also looked at Amon with some surprise. His eyes changed from doubt to surprise. "It is not a fighting spirit that turns into wings, nor is it a complete flying fighting skill, but it is forcibly condensed by relying on one's own strong control over the wind attribute fighting spirit." Who? Kyan nodded slightly. "If it had other attributes, I'm afraid it wouldn't be that easy to use. Only his wind attribute fighting spirit can fly. If you don't practice the skills, then the fighting spirit will be white fighting spirit without attributes." In order to make himself look like a normal fighter, Amon deliberately let this clone practice Yan Jin's skills. Strong fighting energy fluctuations came from the sky, and bright rays of light hung high in the sky like suns. Among these light groups, a Cyan wind attribute sword exuded a cold light point. This is a variation of the Yunlin sect's fighting skill. Sun Yao Yao in Amon's hands. The wind's extreme sunset glory is a hands-off fighting technique. After it is activated, it does not require the simultaneous coordination of the body like Baji Beng to launch the attack point. Therefore, Amon can let several spiritual insects use this fighting skill together to condense multiple energy swords in the air and then fall down at the same time. Liu King's expression changed drastically. Although there are so many fighting skills activated at the same time, there is more or less interference between them. Each of these energy swords is not as powerful as Amon's attack using this move alone, but if they are combined together, they can be shot out at the same time, whose destructive power is no less than that of Earth-level fighting skills. Is this what you said about the main body not being good at fighting? Xiao Meng muttered in her heart, communicating with the spirit insect. It's true that he's not good at fighting. Didn't you notice that these operations he performed were at the best level at this level? In other words, he couldn't explode and use methods beyond the current limit. If it were the same, if Xiao Yan comes to a higher level, the main body will most likely lose. Spiritual insect made a judgment point. Xiao Meng rolled her eyes. If you can't perform beyond your level, does that mean you're not good at fighting? Then I'm afraid that except for the protagonist, there is no one who is good at fighting. Don't worry, we still have the possibility of beating him up. What the main body is best at is using its own strength to cover up shortcomings. Before it truly forms its own system, he must have shortcomings. The spirit insect said. Xiao Meng cheered. Liu King was locked by the key machine, and he felt that there was no way to escape. He gritted his teeth, felt fierce in his heart, and decided to fight with attack point. The thick and long black gun swung in an arc in midair. This heavy gun named Mountain Splitting Gun burst out with bright golden light, and then the golden light became restrained point on the tip of the Mountain Splitting Gun. Golden energy flows like melted gold. The extreme wind meteor, the light group in the sky dispersed, and the Cyan energy sword was revealed, turning into sharp sword energy and shooting towards Liu King. The dazzling light gradually faded. Under that dazzling light, there were 10 sharp sword energies. Shoot towards Liu King. Well done, big split rock. Liu King's tall body took a step forward, and a roar like thunder rang out. As he moved his right hand forward, the tip of the gun pointed diagonally toward the sky. At this moment, the gun shot out like a dragon. Boom. The two energies collided and made a deafening sound. The terrifying energy stirred up strong winds and swept around. The entire school ground shook. A large pit appeared in the center, and large amounts of smoke and dust filled the air. What a terrifying power. Even some elders couldn't help showing a little solemnity. This power was enough to threaten them. The powerful Daowan warriors among the students watching the battle. Even the battle-mad Wu Hao had a hint of fear in his eyes. Is this the top level of inner academy students? He knew deeply that he still had a long way to go before these two people. When the smoke and dust dispersed, Yao Sheng and other Liu King subordinates felt uneasy and stared straight ahead. Who's winning? When the smoke cleared, Liu King's tall figure was standing with a gun. His clothes were in tatters, and he was covered in blood. But such a miserable appearance caused some female students to scream, "So handsome, so manly." Immediately afterwards, Amon also walked out. Apart from his slightly messy clothes, he had no injuries on his body. Once compared, the judgment will be made. The old students in the inner courtyard all had expressions of disbelief. It was hard to imagine that a strong man ranked 4th on the list would be defeated by a new student who had just entered the school. The last time I saw Liu King lose so miserably was, well, it didn't seem like that long. When they thought of the scene when the witch entered the inner courtyard, they couldn't help but twitch the corners of their mouths. She almost reproduced the scene in the outer courtyard. Except for the brute force king who ranked first on the strong list. Everyone on the strong list was beaten. Liu King coughed up a mouthful of blood and said, "You won." He lost consciousness, but he still stood with a gun. So Yao Sheng and his sister Liu Fei found the problem after a while and hurriedly came up to carry him down for treatment. Wait. Amon stopped them and threw a bottle of pills to Yao Sheng. This is a 4th grade healing pill. 4th grade? Yao Sheng's pupils shrank slightly, and he was surprised that Amon casually took out this level of pills. What do you mean? Amon smiled and said, "You're welcome. This is what the boss should do." Ah. Yao Sheng looked confused. "Didn't you invite me to join you just now?" I agreed. "Now I defeated the original boss, so I'm the new boss. Do you have any objections?" At the end, his tone was a little unkind. Yao Sheng was stunned. He had never thought of this development, and for a moment he didn't know how to deal with it. "Let's talk about it after my cousin wakes up." Liu Fei took over and replied. Sukan and Hukan on the high platform had doubts and puzzlement on their faces. They didn't understand Amon's move just now. "Elder Su, did you understand it?" Hukan asked. "No. It's a very strange move. It doesn't feel like a fighting skill to me. It seems that several fighting skills are performed at the same time." Sukan frowned, puzzled. "I have the same feeling. It is obviously not a ground level fighting skill, and it does not have the characteristics of attracting the energy of heaven and earth, but the destructive power is far greater than the Zuan level." Hukan said. He stood up and was about to announce that the 3rd game would be held in the afternoon to leave Amon some rest time, but he saw Xiao Meng left his seat and walked to the center of the field. She looked at Amon with eyes as deep as stars and asked, "Do you need to rest or continue?" "Go on, I'm in good shape." As he said that, he threw a candy bean that looked like a pill into his mouth, pretending to recover his fighting spirit. In fact, his fighting spirit was very abundant, not to mention a large number of spirit insects. The Daohuan body alone could support him to keep fighting. Xiao Meng nodded. She knew the situation of this Zhao Mingru classmate very well, so she would not be polite to him. She immediately took a fighting stance. Her expression became serious, and the aura on her body also showed a bit of coldness and murderousness. Zuna, who knew something about her, narrowed her eyes and said lightly, "Xiao Meng." She was so serious at the beginning. "This is normal. After all, Zhao Mingru's strength just now is so strong." Zuna did not comment. Her intuition told her that there was something wrong with Zhao Mingru. Chapter 403. Aerial battle between Dowling. Xiao Meng's arms glowed with bright stars, and in the starlight, it seemed that countless layers of doors could be vaguely seen. Amon stroked his monocle. With a look of interest in his eyes, he formed a seal with his hands, formed a cyan palm print in front of him, and launched a tentative attack. Gale. Handprint. The palm print quickly passed through the big hole created by the collision between Amon and Liu King and headed towards Xiao Meng. Xiao Meng just slapped the handprint diagonally and slapped it away. Amon's expression was slightly condensed. Although he could understand everything she did by exchanging memories with Xiao Meng through spiritual connection, he didn't want to do that. Spiritual connection will cause the clone's personality will to move closer to the main body, and the main body also needs to bear the pressure brought by different wills. Most of the clones have no problem doing this, but for some clones that deviate too much, Amon has to treat them with caution. So he just analyzed the principle of Xiao Meng's move in his mind. Oh, it turns out that the part of the power of the door that represents the seal was gathered into his arms. When the sealed power comes into contact with fighting skills, it will cause lag in the opponent's fighting skills. The power of fighting skills in the sluggish state tends to be stable and will not hurt people. Take advantage of the sluggish speed of fighting skills to hit them away. A very simple and practical way of fighting, Amon commented silently. Seal and breaking seal, the two abilities that embody the characteristics of the door, were awakened by Amon when he reached the 5th level. This trait is also reflected in the clones simultaneously, giving them corresponding abilities for Amon, whose main body or character such as Wu Meng and Yan Meng are highly unified with the main body. As the agent of the main body's will, he plans a certain matter, or is responsible for a certain area. Only by making overall plans and thinking about strategic goals and actions can it's what they should do. Therefore, the main body and these Amon spend more energy on improving their own levels. In terms of cultivation, they will only consider exercises rather than fighting skills. As for Xiao Meng, a clone of Amon who does not practice Dao Qi himself and relies entirely on aggregating more spirit insects to improve his level, they think less about their skills and spend more energy thinking about how to improve the skills they already have. Under the conditions of cultivation, you can use all your advantages to improve your combat effectiveness. In short, the main body is in the realm of crushing flow, while the clone is in the same realm of invincible flow. It is very easy for the main body to absorb the fighting experience of the clone. Except for the specialized distractions such as alien fire Amon, most of the fighting skills that the clone can use can be learned by the main body through a mental connection point, so the final result is that Amon's physical realm and combat effectiveness have not fallen behind. Even if Xiao Meng is special, Amon will not directly connect mentally out of caution. It will only take more time to digest what she has gained. The stronger Xiao Meng is, and the more new tricks she has, the happier Amon will be. What's hers is anyway. Amon's thinking only took a moment. After Xiao Meng knocked away Gale's handprint, he immediately rushed forward. His slender left leg popped out, and a whip hit Amon's head from the side. Amon blocked with his right hand, but felt a huge force coming, knocking him away directly. Fighting energy surged all over his body. Using the wind generated by fighting energy to adjust his position in the air, Amon spun around and landed on the ground. He staggered back a few steps before regaining his balance. He looked at Xiao Meng with a hint of surprise. She seemed to have a deep understanding of fighting skills, and every move she made was directly using fighting skills. For example, when she just rushed over and used footwork and whipped her legs to attack herself, they were all fighting skills, but the levels were very low, and they were all low-level yellow level skills. But integrating fighting skills into every move she makes means that she has figured out some rules and summarized her own set of methods after Xiao Meng tested it and found that Amon did not use his higher will to interfere with his actions. He also understood what he meant. Let go and fight. There was a dangerous arc on her face, and what the spirit insects instigated was still very tempting. Wind. Wall. A wall of wind prevented Xiao Meng from getting closer, and the Sidewind attribute wings behind Amon spread out again and rose into the sky. A pair of light black wings appeared from Xiao Meng's back, and she chased after him. Dowling can fly short distances. However, flying is too much for Dowling, and their Dao Qi is not enough to support long distance flight. In addition, because they do not have enough control over themselves in the air, few fighting spirits will use flying in combat, let alone engage in aerial combat. Fighting in the air for a long period of time is an ability only possessed by warriors of Dao Wang and above. And Zhao Mingru and Xiao Meng actually placed the battlefield in the air, which surprised everyone present. Ujia's eyes widened in disbelief. They shouldn't be Dao Wang, right, Bei? Shan said solemnly. Even if it's not yet, I'm afraid it's not far away. Maybe when we enter the inner courtyard, there may be an additional Dao Wang strongman on the list. He looked at Xiao Meng with fear and admiration, and then turned his eyes to Zuna. Xiao Meng is indeed touching, but occasionally a little crazy. In contrast, Zuna is indeed the perfect goddess. Feeling Bei Shan's burning gaze, Zuna looked unhappy. She didn't pay much attention and focused her gaze on Xiao Meng in the sky. With doubts in her eyes, Hukan stroked his beard, and the surprise in his eyes was undisguised. How can that little girl Xiao Meng fly? He could feel the instability of the pair of wings behind Xiao Meng's back, indicating that they were indeed forcibly condensed with Dao Qi at the Dowling level. But Xiao Meng flew very quickly and even chased Zhao Mingru in the air for a while. Sukan shook her head. I don't understand. I can understand Zhao Mingru's wind attribute fighting spirit, but I have no idea about Xiao Meng's wings. Xiao Meng used her fighting spirit to form a slender long sword and slashed at Amon. The latter also formed a long sword to block and strike back. The two collided many times in the air. Although it was not as grand as the previous battle between Amon and Liu King, it was still more exciting because the place where they fought was in the air, while Sukan, a Dao Zhang, was still confused. Amon saw the clues. Xiao Meng's wings were very fast, but a little less agile. Just like airplane wings. Amon stopped, stroked his monocle, and watched Xiao Meng scurrying around in the air, with a hint of smile in his eyes. Interesting. Zhao Meng's flying principle is a little different. She uses aerodynamics to fly by changing the shape of her wings. Her wings are thick at the front and thin at the back, with the lower part flat and the upper part curved. When flying, lift is generated due to the difference in the velocity of the upper and lower airflow. Therefore, for her, continuous flying consumes less energy than hovering in the air. So after Amon stopped, she continued to hover and circle around him. At this time, Su Qian and Hu Qian also saw some patterns. Zhao Meng was fast but inflexible. After launching an attack, he had to fly far away before he could change direction and fly back. This should be a special fighting skill. Hu Qian analyzed seriously. The lack of flexibility in movement is the flaw of this fighting skill. In addition, this fighting skill seems to be completely created for the realm of fighting spirits and is only suitable for fighting spirits. Su Qian said in a low tone, I feel like she created such a highly targeted fighting skill herself. What? Hu Qian's eyes were shocked. Chapter 404, No Companion. Amon searched in his mind and found that there was no more advanced physics and mathematics knowledge. Could it be that they were assigned to Zhao Meng accidentally? Well, that kind of thing actually doesn't exist. After joking to himself, Amon began to think about how to put more pressure on Zhao Meng and force her to use other methods. Zhao Meng's current fighting ability is strong, but it is still within the range of fighting spirits. She cannot defeat a fighting king with this, so she must have more powerful abilities. Amon formed a seal with his hands. Wind, wall, large green barriers appeared in the sky, hindering Zhao Meng's flight. Due to the large number of obstacles created by Amon, Zhao Meng had to stop her wing-type flight. She hovered for a while, and then slowly fell to the ground after finding that the consumption was too great. Amon kept up the pressure. The wind kills Niangang. A large amount of wind-attributed fighting energy resided above the head, condensing into a small sand sword. As the handprints changed, the small sword rotated at high speed and struck Zhao Meng. Guardian. Guazhang. This was Zuna's fighting skill, and Zhao Meng secretly learned it after seeing it several times. After combining with its own sealing ability, its defensive ability becomes even more powerful. Her hands clapped together so quickly that after images appeared, the small green rotating energy swords were knocked away one by one and scattered around. Amon did not waste the wind energy. When a large number of them surrounded Zhao Meng and had not dispersed, he activated the wind wall to trap him inside. Zhao Meng suddenly lowered her lower body, made a fist with one hand at her waist, and stretched her right hand forward in a palm shape. Looking at Amon in the air, he slowly raised the corners of his mouth to form a smile. Seeing her posture, an elder who was watching the battle opened his eyes wide, staring at the gorgeous figure in the field, for fear of missing any detail. Amon raised an eyebrow. Zhao Meng retracted her right hand halfway, then immediately pushed it forward. A dazzling star appeared on her palm. In the dazzling light, a large number of layered doors appeared and disappeared. Amon suddenly felt a wave of movement behind him, and a soft boneless white hand gently pressed on his waist. Immediately, he discovered that the fighting energy of this spiritual insect that had taken the form of a human had become extremely difficult to flow, almost to the point of freezing. Seal. This is Zhao Meng's sealing ability. Amon, who also has the ability to seal and break seals, can naturally break it easily. But because Zhao Meng has already occupied it and exposed it to outsiders, it is not convenient for him to use such power. He could only stumble and fly to the ground like a normal person who has been sealed. Seeing Zhao Meng behaving like this, the elders watching also made small comments. Is this a trick? You were defeated by this palm last time, right? An elder in yellow asked as he looked at the grey middle-aged man beside him. The elder in grey clothes, who was staring at Zhao Meng intently before, nodded. That's right. I saw it for the second time, but I still didn't understand it. It was completely formless and without any trace. Vice. Dean Hu Qian's eyes widened. Space fighting skills. He was not present when Zhao Meng violently beat the elder last time. Zhao Meng did not resist after he struck, so it was the first time for him to witness Zhao Meng's palm as the peak Dao Huang. He has already been vaguely exposed to the use of spatial abilities. Yes. Great Elder Su Qian nodded and replied in the affirmative. He said with a smile on his face, this girl Zhao Meng can really surprise people. Just this move will save her a lot of difficulties when she reaches the peak of Daohuang and attacks Daozang. Experts can already use the power of space in a superficial way. The understanding of space ability is a major difficulty when advancing to Daozang. Ukan rubbed his hands with some excitement. I underestimated her, but if this fighting skill can help people understand spatial abilities, seeing Ukan like this, Sukan smiled. He understood how tempting such a fighting skill was to a person who was stuck at the peak of Daohuang and was unable to make any progress. He said softly, "It is not what our Canon Academy teachers should do to steal students' fighting skills. Of course, if you are willing to pay a big price for it in exchange, and she agrees to the exchange, I will not interfere." Kyan blew his beard and said with a glare, "Am I the kind of person who would take things from students by force? If I have evil intentions, the dean will not trust the outer courtyard to me, but I do covet that fighting skill, but I don't know how to say it. Anyway, if I mention it now, it always feels a bit overwhelming, so." Kyan chuckled, "Maybe you can wait a few years. With this girl's talent, I'm afraid it won't take long to break through to the Daohuang. By then, the gap between you will be smaller and you will initially have the qualifications to talk on an equal footing. If you ask your granddaughter goes and asks, who?" Kyan nodded and said, "That's all we can do. In addition, please help me keep an eye on her situation in the inner courtyard. If she encounters any trouble that is difficult to solve, just tell me." So, Kyan nodded slightly. Amon, whose fighting spirit was blocked, managed to land safely before he was completely delayed. Xiaomeng, who was already ready to attack, immediately rushed forward and elbowed him in the chest. Amon spit out a mouthful of blood and flew out. The spiritual insects in Xiaomeng's body cheered. "Yeah, the achievement of beating the main body is achieved. I am not the original body." Before being beaten, the original body severed the spiritual connection with me. Spirit insect Xiaomingru sent a message. The spirit insects on Xiaomeng's side were disappointed again. Their emotions affected Xiaomeng, making her look depressed. Amon got up from the ground, wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth with the back of his right hand, and said slightly listlessly, "I lost." "What is your last move called?" Xiaomeng regained some spirit. A beautiful smile appeared at the corner of his mouth, and replied in a pleasant voice, "Wu Xiang Hand." This move is called Wu Xiang Hand. When Amon reached the 5th level, the characteristics of the door began to show. In addition to seal and break the seal, the spatial ability is naturally included. The previous corpse dance crow also used this to hide itself. However, the spatial characteristics revealed by Amon are only the most superficial, not very strong, so he did not pay much attention to it. Anyway, as long as the cultivation is improved, the spatial characteristics will be further enhanced, and it will be much easier to develop and use them in battle at that time. Unexpectedly, Xiaomeng gave him a surprise. She had already applied the weak spatial characteristics to actual combat, and based on this, she created a fighting skill. Amon nodded with a smile on his face. It's a very appropriate name. The mystery of Xiaomeng's strong fighting power was also revealed. It is difficult for Daohuang, who does not understand the power of space, to avoid the Wu Xiang Hand, plus the seal ability that can also work on Daohuang. The combination of the two allows her to suppress most Daohuang, although Xiaomeng's seal is not, as long as Medusa's serpent seal curse and the amethyst seal of the amethyst winged lion king, it does not take long in battle. Even a few tens of seconds is enough to decide the outcome of the battle. Kyan stood up and announced the result of the trial with a smile. He said to Amon, "Congratulations. From now on, you officially become a student of our Canon College Inner Court." Amon smiled warmly on his face, bowed slightly, and responded, "It's Milner. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels." Chapter 405 Mysterious Stone. After the trial, the people present gradually dispersed. Amon said to Xiaomeng, "Classmate, can you help me remove the seal on my body?" 7. It will naturally be removed in 7 minutes, Xiao. Meng originally wanted to say 7 hours, but when he met the German sparrow-like eyes of Zhao Mingru, he shrank his head and changed his words to 7 minutes. Amon nodded. Ukan came over, looked at Zhao Meng, moved his mouth twice, and swallowed the words back. With a barely perceptible sigh, he said to Amon, I promised you before that I would give you corresponding rewards based on your trial performance. The reward for winning 1 game is 500 fire energy, and if you win 2 games, you can be allowed to try your luck in the library and choose an item. Come to the library to find me in 3 days, because it takes some tricks to get the reward from the library. Ukan deliberately gave Amon 3 days to recover from his injuries. In the spacious and bright room, rows of bookshelves were neatly arranged, filled with books. Although it was not a martial arts or fighting skill, there were many records of various magical beasts and herbs. For those who did not have a master, this could be called a treasure mountain. In the center of this sea of books, an old man with white hair and beard was slowly flipping through an ancient book. There were slight footsteps, and a young man in ordinary linen clothes came over and greeted the old man in a gentle tone. Weisstein, you are here. Ukan closed the book and looked at Amon. Have you recovered from your injuries? Some minor injuries. I have recovered a long time ago. Senior sister Zhao Meng held back. Come with me. Ukan stood up, walked to a wall, and patted it a few times. A passage emitting dim fluorescence in the dark appeared in front of him. Night shining pearls were inlaid on the upper part of both sides, and the dim light was emitted by them. Ukan walked in, and this little light was enough for him to see his feet clearly. Amon followed without hesitation. In the quiet passage, only the sound of 2 people's footsteps echoed. After walking for more than half an hour, a ray of light finally appeared in front of them. Light sprinkled from the sky, and a valley surrounded by mountains on 3 sides appeared in front of them. In the wide open space, there was a huge building that was almost as big as the surrounding mountains. A huge pavilion revealed a vicissitudes of life and a heavy sense of history. A plaque with 3 big characters book collection pavilion hung high above the pavilion. Although it looked right in front of him, in Amon's perception, this pavilion was far away. A layer of space barrier blocked them, making this short distance an insurmountable natural moat. Is this the method of Daozun? Interesting. Amon raised his right hand and stroked his monocle. He saw dozens of loopholes of various sizes from the block space. If he wanted, he could invade with his space characteristics, but he will be slapped to death by the 2 Daozun masters guarding the library. Ukan stopped when he brought Amon to the open space in front of the library. Elder Sukan and I agree that this boy has the strength to enter the inner courtyard, and he has passed the test we set, and is qualified to go to the library to choose an item. I hope you elders will open the door. Ukan spoke to the empty space in front of him, and bowed respectfully. His words spread with the Dao key, and echoed in the valley. 2 grey-robed men suddenly appeared in front of them. They sat cross-legged on the ground, as if they had always been there. Amon only felt a slight fluctuation in space. Bailey and Kyan Mu, the 2 strongest people in Canon College, except for the Dean Mang Xianqi who was unknown where he was, were at the peak of the 9-star Daozun. Amon's expression was slightly condensed. These 2 people and Zuna's guardian were the biggest variables in his plan. Any intervention by anyone would cause great interference to his pursuit of the fallen heart flame. Amon didn't even have a way to evade or counterattack. There was no other reason. The level gap was too big, so big that it was insurmountable with existing means. 2 grey-robed figures like old monks slowly raised their heads and swept their eyes over Ukan and Amon in turn. Their eyes stayed on Amon for a while, and they uttered a slightly puzzled light. Amon gave them a very strange feeling. He looked like a Dowling, but there seemed to be many hidden and more powerful powers hidden in his body. However, they didn't delve into it. Canon College has been established for so many years, and countless outstanding students have come in and out. They all have their own little secrets, and it is normal to meet a more special one occasionally. At such an age, he can reach the realm of Dowling. He is really gifted. An old and somewhat hoarse voice sounded from under the grey robe. Another person said, it's much stronger than the previous batches, so it's worth opening it for him. The 2 of them formed a strange seal at the same time, and ripples appeared on the space folds that were so subtle that they were almost imperceptible to the naked eye, forming a passage. Okay, the space lock has been opened. Let's go through it as soon as possible. Who? Kyan and Amon passed through the space channel and entered the space lock. A grey-robed man waved his right hand, and the closed door of the library slowly opened. The door will only be open for 1 hour. After 1 hour, you must come out regardless of whether you have obtained anything or not. The items inside are protected by energy layers. Do what you can. If you cannot break through the energy layer, then change to another one. You cannot force things that you cannot obtain. A guard reminded. There are students who have gone in empty-handed in the past. In addition, most of the things here are the feedback from your seniors after they have achieved success. If you can develop to a certain level in the future, you might as well come back here and leave some small things for your juniors. Another person added. Amon replied lightly. Definitely. Good luck to you. Who? Kyan said with a light smile. Amon stepped through the door, walked through the long passage, and came to an empty and spacious room. The huge room was empty, but there was a layer of energy shield around it, with faint spatial fluctuations on it. Although Amon could also break through these energy shields, Kyan, Mu and Bailey, the two guards of the pavilion, might be watching, and his goal was not here, so he could not expose his own spatial characteristics in advance, so he did not mess around and waited honestly in the same place. A subtle sound of breaking through the air came, and Amon knew that the mechanism of the library was activated. On the walls around, energy vortices emitting flowing light appeared one after another. One by one, light balls emerged from the energy vortex on the wall, passed through the huge room at a very high speed, and disappeared into the other wall. Amon pinched his monocle, looked up and quietly watched the light balls passing by quickly, without any movement. These energy layers wrapped around objects are also a kind of seal. Amon's breaking seal talent allows him to see through these not complicated seals and sense the objects wrapped inside. Gang for fighting skills, Cheyenne for fruit, elixir, many things that are enough to cause Daohuang and even Daohuang to compete for in the outside world are wrapped in energy layers of different colors and fly past Amon's eyes, but he is not moved at all. His dark eyes are deep, as mysterious as the starry sky. There are many things that can play a role for Amon now, but their usefulness is limited, and they are not necessary. Therefore, he was more willing to continue waiting until he saw something that really interested him. Even if he ended up getting nothing, because he wasted too much time, it didn't matter. The sky was full of brilliance, and the interest in Amon's eyes gradually faded and disappeared. He was not disappointed either. After all, most of the things inside were returned by past seniors after graduation. They were all things they no longer needed, and there were basically no truly high-end items. Just as he was about to take a random hairband leave, a more violent energy fluctuation came. Amon looked a little puzzled. His eyes passed through the energy layer and saw the items inside. A dark stone with dark red lines on the surface. As soon as his right foot stepped on the ground, his fighting spirit surged, and he suddenly soared into the air, passing by like an eagle with wings spread, and took the grey energy ball that caught his attention in his hand. The fighting spirit condensed in his hand, and the flowing starlight flashed obscurely, and the energy layer was easily eliminated. Amon put the dark stone with dark red lines on the surface in front of him, and looked at it carefully. He found that it was also a layer of energy seal, but the essence of the energy was so high that it became a physical entity, looking like a special stone. TSK. Interesting. After trying it, the seal breaking ability of this Dowling body could not dissolve the seal. He planned to try it with the Daohuang body. After returning, Amon thought about it and changed his mind again. Well, it's too risky. What if there is a dangerous object sealed? Let's try it with the Daohuang clone. If it doesn't work, keep it first, and it won't be too late to try again when the clone reaches the Daohuang level. After confirming the item, Amon walked out without any reluctance. As Amon left, the energy vortex on the wall of the huge room gradually became smaller and disappeared with a slight click. Amon turned around and left without any reluctance. Walking out of the door, the grey-robed man's sleeves moved slightly, and invisible energy filled the surroundings and swept over Amon. Amon guessed that this should be to check whether he followed the rules and whether he only took one. He tossed the stone in his hand. To indicate his harvest point, the invisible energy receded like a tide, and the grey-robed man nodded slightly to Amon and said in a hoarse, old voice, remember, don't disclose what's happening here, including us and the situation inside the library, to anyone. Amon smiled softly. I remember. He bowed politely to the two people, then slowly walked down the steps and came to Hukan's side. Did you gain anything? Not bad. That's good. Then, Hukan said to the two elders, I won't disturb you two from your meditation. Goodbye. The two left the space lock through the invisible door in the space. When Amon looked back, the two grey-robed men sitting cross-legged on the ground had disappeared. Just as suddenly as they appeared, ripples appeared on the folds of space again, and the door of the space lock was slowly closed. The ancient, huge mountain-like pavilion disappeared into the valley again, like a flower in a mirror or a moon in water. Although it seemed to be right in front of it, it was out of reach. Chapter 406. Among. Back in the library, Hukan closed the door on the wall, then turned around and said to Amon, okay, you have received your award. Although you are strong and you are the best, even if you enter the inner courtyard, don't underestimate others. The fight between students is not limited to the ring. It is okay to fight outside the arena. You won't lose your arms and legs or your life, but you probably don't want to experience the humiliation of being stepped on by others. You can try to cooperate with others. You will find that many times teamwork is much easier than fighting alone. Amon smiled and responded, what I'm best at is cooperating with others. Well, aren't LIU King's group my partners now? Who? Khan. After a long silence, he shook his head with a smile. If you think it is cooperation, then forget it. Let's go. I'll take you to the inner courtyard. When they arrived at the open space in front of the library, a huge griffin was already waiting there. It combed its smooth feathers with its eagle-like beak from time to time, and the sharpness in its eyes occasionally showed that it was not just an ordinary man carrying tool, but a ferocious predator. The driver sitting on the back of the griffin gently stroked it, and the fighting spirit on his palm trembled slightly. The griffin squinted his eyes and looked very enjoyable. Brother, come on up. The driver shouted to Amon. Amon jumped up and landed steadily on the broad back of the griffin. Hukan's fighting spirit turned into wings and soared into the sky. The griffin also vibrated its wings, accompanied by a gust of wind, and the huge beast took off into the air, following closely behind Hukan. The inner courtyard is located in the endless mountains behind, not a short distance from the outer courtyard. In the vast mountains and forests, there are countless beasts. Several breaths of 5th level monsters flashed by, and even a 6th level monster stood on the top of the mountain and looked coldly. Hukan exuded his peak Daohuan aura without any concealment. The 5th and 6th level monsters have already had a high level of intelligence, which is not much different from humans. They also know what to provoke and what not to provoke. Therefore, they did not launch an attack, and at most issued a few intimidating roars. Amon recorded the aura and approximate location of the powerful monsters along the way. If necessary, he would find an opportunity to make friends with them all. Be careful. If it is a team from the outer courtyard to the inner courtyard, there will be more people escorting, so the safety is guaranteed. But now it's just us. There may be blind 6th level monsters to cause trouble. You have to be prepared. I may not be able to stop all dangers. Hukan reminded. I know. Amon's face did not change. There were no dangers along the way, except for a few 4th level flying monsters with bad brains who came to die. None of the overlords in the mountains took action. Living between the inner and outer courtyards, they also knew that Cannon College was a behemoth that should not be provoked. There are not only a large number of Daohuan and Daowang masters, but also stronger ones. In the past, a 6th level monster attacked the Cannon Academy team, which resulted in a black-robed master, and even the surrounding monster overlords suffered. Therefore, when they see the griffin beast now, they usually only intimidate from a distance. Passing through a large area of mountains and forests. Near dusk, a huge basin surrounded by continuous mountains appeared in front of them. The afterglow of the setting sun is like a layer of golden gauze, gently draped over the earth. In the basin, huge, continuous pavilions stand in it. Under the shining of the setting sun, the pavilion's outline golden edges, you can vaguely see a small black shadow like a flea flying between the pavilions and disappear from sight in a few flashes. This is the inner courtyard, which is usually managed by the great elder Sukayan. If you have any questions, just ask him later. Hukayan said to Amon point as he was talking. A figure in a black robe came from far away and flew over quickly. There were no Daoki wings behind him point stepping in the air. This is the sign of a Daozang strongman. He's here. Hukayan said lightly. It's getting late and I should go back. Next, the elder will arrange your accommodation. You can fly by yourself, so I won't let the griffin go down. Amon tapped the back of the griffin with his toes and floated up lightly. The sign wings spread behind him and the wind attribute energy surrounded him. He said respectfully, thank you for the trouble, Vice Dean Hu. It's nothing to trouble you. This is what I should do. I hope that the next time I hear from you, you can give me a surprise. Hukayan waved his hand. He landed on the griffin and rode the griffin away from the direction he came from. Sukayan walked to Amon in the air, opened his mouth with a kind smile and said, welcome to the inner courtyard. Zalmingru, do you have any requirements for accommodation? Do you like a quiet place or a lively place? The inner courtyard is very large and there are many vacant pavilions. You can choose any place to live. Amon thought for a while and asked, excuse me, where does senior sister Xiaomeng live? Kayan's expression was a little strange, but he immediately showed a knowing smile. She likes quietness, so there are not many people around. You can live next to her if you want. But if you have other ideas, it's better to prepare more healing pills. Otherwise I'm worried that you will be found too late and die without treatment. Amon smiled and responded, senior sister is very strong. I want to communicate with her more. It's great to be young. Sukayan sighed. If you insist, then come with me. Kayan brought Amon to an empty courtyard. He pointed to the house next to him and said, Xiaomeng lives there. She doesn't seem to have a good personality. Many students in the inner courtyard have been beaten. Don't provoke her if you have nothing to do. After saying that, he was about to leave, but he paused again. I almost forgot. Here, this is your fire crystal card. He flicked his finger and flicked a black card to Amon. Amon took the card and looked at it carefully. Sukayan explained, in the inner courtyard, fire crystal cards are divided into 5 colors from low to high: black, blue, cyan, red, and purple. What you have in your hand now is the lowest level black fire crystal card. The fire energy in the fire crystal card can be regarded as a kind of currency in the inner courtyard. It can be used for you to practice in the heaven burning refining key tower, which is also the core practice method of the inner courtyard. What I'm saying now may be a little vague. You'll know after you live in the inner courtyard for a while and learn about the heavenly fen refining key tower. After settling the new student Zalmingru, the elder Sukayan turned and left. When he passed by Xiaomeng's house, he walked in with some concern. Xiaomeng was holding a big stone and tinkering in the yard. Sukayan watched silently for a while, but still couldn't figure out what she was doing. He asked in confusion, what are you doing? Oh, I want to make a life-size statue of Master Xiaoyan. Xiaomeng stopped and replied. Sukayan, what's the matter with the elder coming to see me? You have a student moving in next door. If there is a conflict, I hope you can be more careful. After all, there are no other people around here. If the injury is too serious and no one finds it and takes it to treatment in time, it will be fatal. Sukayan said with some advice. Okay, I promise not to beat him to death. Xiaomeng nodded, and then she remembered the new students who had just entered the school a few days ago, and her face froze. Wait, the student you are talking about, isn't it Zalmingru? Sukayan replied calmly, yes. At night, a black shadow quietly climbed into Xiaomeng's room through the window point. When he saw the room full of Xiaoyan, he was stunned, and his expression became extremely strange. Amon stared at the artificially beautified portrait of Xiaoyan on the wall for a long time without saying a word. Xiaomeng returned to the room and subconsciously raised her hand to attack. The palm that was shining with stars stopped abruptly when it was about to hit the uninvited guest who entered her room without permission and never made an inch of progress. When she saw the opposite side clearly, Xiao Meng retracted her palm, and the surging fighting spirit in her body also subsided. She made a TSK sound and casually pulled out her chair and sat down. "You're here, but why don't you turn on the shield? I can't sense you. I'm doubting whether I'm an Amon." Xiao Meng said in a complaining tone. Amon turned around and smiled. "I'm just shocked by this scene," he said in a strange tone. "Are you crazy?" Xiao Meng shook his head. "I'm not crazy." Amon raised his eyebrows, and a starlight shot out from his body and sank into Xiao Meng's body. "This is a new spirit worm. I split it after taking the transformation pill. After fusing it, you can also have the ability to transform." The surface of Xiao Meng's body seemed to melt, and the liquid surface turned into a wriggling worm. The translucent worm with 12 rings and star-shaped colors left Xiao Meng's body, and the originally beautiful appearance of this body suddenly became ordinary, as if some anchors had removed their makeup, or did not turn on the filter. A burst of bright starlight lit up from one of the spirit worms, illuminating the entire room. The brilliance lasted for a while, and then slowly dissipated. In the hazy light, the spirit worm gradually transformed, outlining a curvy figure. The lines became solid from illusory and transparent, and a woman who was more than 90% similar to Xiao Meng, who had always appeared in front of others, appeared in the room. The difference was that she was more mature than Xiao Meng, and became more charming and charming. "I have been shackled by that body all the time, and I'm really a little uncomfortable leaving it suddenly." A soft voice sounded, and Amon, who was in a female image, condensed a black robe with Daoki and put it on her body. She stroked the ring with her thumb, took out a single lens made of crystal, embedded it in the eye socket of her right eye, and adjusted the position. And the body of Xiao Meng, that she had been parasitizing, was kicked aside like garbage. She looked at Amon with her soul-stirring eyes and emphasized again, "I'm not crazy. Isn't it you who has always been the craziest? Long time no see, Amon. Long time no see, Amon." Chapter 407, Fire of Destiny. Am I crazy? Maybe. If Quan Meng is counted as Amon, then Amon, who is split into so many different sides and has so many personality types, is undoubtedly very crazy. But as far as the individual personality is concerned, I'm very rational, Amon said with a smile. Xiao Meng sat on the chair, stretched lazily, crossed her legs, leaned forward, rested her elbows on her legs, and supported her chin with her palms. "You decided my fate of falling in love with Xiao Yan. You gave me my feelings and thinking logic. Even the changes in my personality were indulged by you. So the root of all problems is you. Who is crazy if not you?" Amon sat opposite Xiao Meng, stared at her, and said without comment, "Maybe, but your emotions are so." He looked around the room at the objects surrounding Xiao Yan, paused for a moment, and then continued, "Well, blazing emotions are blazing, rich, and burst out from the depths of a person's soul, aren't they?" Xiao Meng smiled and asked Amon for a mental connection. The latter hesitated and refused. Xiao Meng leaned back on the wide and high back of the chair, with the corners of his mouth pulled back greatly, outlining a slightly crazy smile. "Why do you want to refuse? What are you worried about?" Amon's smile remained unchanged, still gentle. "It's not that easy to deviate my will, but it will affect your state. As you said, feelings are passionate and strong, and my will is more rational and colder. If this cold will affects your passionate feelings, then Xiao Meng may no longer exist." Xiao Meng made a TSK sound and did not speak. Amon thought for 2 seconds and said the main purpose of his visit to Xiao Meng, report your recent gains and pass on the skills of the Wuxiang hand to me. Xiao Meng's fingers moved slightly, and a spiritual message shot towards Amon. Amon used a spirit worm to receive the message from Xiao Meng, filtered the thinking and will in it, and then merged it into the body. It's not that he is worried that the clone may be detrimental to the original body. Even if he allows the clone to play freely, he can't open some of the deepest things to the clone. The clone must have limitations, but the lack of subjective malice does not mean that there will be no harm. And friendliness does not necessarily mean no threat. Just like the hidden sage in The Secret instilling knowledge, he may just act on instinct or like to teach others, but the indoctrinated person needs to face great danger. The knowledge passed by Xiao Meng includes the use of the phaseless hand and creative ideas. This fighting skill relies on its own spatial characteristics. It was not originally used for fighting, but for stealing. If the target is not prepared, it can steal the items in the other party's ring without anyone noticing. For the existence of the peak Daohuang who touches the power of space, there is a possibility of failure, but most of the targets below will not fail. However, in battle, this is also very useful. Although the Wuxiang hand cannot carry too much Dao Qi through space due to its weak spatial properties, which will cause the microspace channel formed by it to be unstable, it can pose a great threat to the opponent when combined with the seal talent point. Because it does not carry much Dao Qi, the seal is also weak, and will not take effect for too long, but 2 or 3 seconds in a battle is enough to determine the victory. Very interesting skills, great creation. It seems that you have perfectly inherited my talent. Amon praised. TSK. Shameless body. Xiao Meng pouted. Anything else? Xiao Meng sent a message to Amon again in silence. This time, it included her summary of the fighting skills system and summarized some basic principles. Some simple fighting skills can be integrated into some ordinary actions, and every move in the battle can gain the same increase as low-level fighting skills. This is not a very creative move, because for those strong people, fighting skills have become their instincts, and their ordinary punches instinctively operate some of the fighting skills in the fighting skills they are familiar with. However, to reach this level, at least one must become a Daozang strongman first. Some Daohuang and Daowang may also be able to do it, but only some movements that he is very familiar with. The smile on Amon's face became a little more intense. Xiao Meng made his combat power increase a little. I think you should be more than this. Have you cultivated the most critical things? Of course. Xiao Meng smiled charmingly and slowly raised her right hand. At her fingertips, a golden flame was dancing. This flame is both illusory and real. It contains countless line-like textures inside. The golden silk threads are intertwined and fused, giving people a sense of contradiction that is both messy and orderly. Based on the characteristics of Amon's own destiny, with the deep influence and combination of Xiao Yan's destiny as an opportunity, the flame ignited is the fire of destiny. The beast fire belongs to Amon. Amon's eyes widened a little, staring at the golden flame in Xiao Meng's hand. It really succeeded? This is a bit beyond my expectations. I thought the rules in the Duppo world would be buried in a deeper place and more difficult to touch. Xiao Meng laughed. Generally speaking, it is like that, but we chose a good entry point. The characteristics of Amon itself are already high enough in this Dao Qi plane. In addition, Xiao Yan's destiny is also very special. If it is the Great Thousand World, it would be much more difficult to dig out destiny. She waved her hand, and the golden flame fell on the body of the host Xiao Meng, who was thrown aside like a broken doll. The ordinary body was ignited, and under the burning of the power of destiny, it was twisted, and became illusory. After the flame burned for a while, it began to shrink. Host Xiao Meng had disappeared, leaving only the golden crystals left after the destiny burned. This is the residue left by destiny. The fire of destiny wrapped the residue and returned to Xiao Meng, or Meng's hands. She swallowed the residue into her stomach and occupied the fate of the host Xiao Meng. At this moment, the established destiny was changed. Originally, Meng parasitized on the body of the host Xiao Meng and followed Xiao Yan as a maid. Now the host Xiao Meng disappeared and Meng took her place. She no longer followed Xiao Yan as a parasite, but entered Xiao Yan's vision with her current body from the beginning. Although it was very subtle and had almost no substantial impact, it did distort fate. Xiao Yan, who was chasing the people from the Sky Snake Mansion who kidnapped King Lin and came to Yan Jin, suddenly stopped, and a feeling of loss rose in his heart. What's wrong? Xiao Yan, hey Bodong Amon, who was tempted by the resurrection purple pill and became Xiao Yan's temporary bodyguard, asked in confusion. Nothing, I just feel like I forgot something. That moment of hesitation made him lose the people from the Sky Snake Mansion. Catch the assassin. They are there. are two people. Don't let them run away. They are the ones who killed the great elder Mo Cheng. Mo Cheng? Yan Cheng Mo family. Yunlin sect's outer sect deacon. We seem to be blamed. Hey Bodong said in a low voice. Let's retreat. Xiao Yan was a little uneasy. Although he felt guilty and regretful for not being able to get King Lin back, he was uneasy at the moment and felt dazed. In the Mo family's house, Mo Lan, the head of the Mo family, communicated with the spirit insect in his body. Is it okay to put the blame on them like this? Will anyone from the Yunlin sect come to hold them accountable? You think too highly of Mo Cheng. To the Yunlin sect, he is just a dispensable little character. What's more, you have already taken action. Is there any point in asking these questions? The spirit insect laughed. Mo Lan sighed, and his eyes changed from hesitation to determination. Zuna suddenly woke up from her sleep. She gasped for breath and felt a dazed and unreal feeling. Put on your clothes and go to the window. There is a bright moon hanging in the night sky, and the moonlight is like water pouring on the earth. Under the moonlight, the night does not seem dark. Zuna stared at the sky. She felt like she had a dream. In the dream, there was a very good friend. The friend disappeared, replaced by something indescribable. No, a friend is just a body, but that indescribable thing has now abandoned this body and revealed its original appearance. So is my friend that body or that indescribable thing? After thinking for a moment, Zuna threw away the strange thoughts in her mind. How could I have such a strange dream? Am I too tired? Zuna was no longer sleepy and stared at the bright moon in the sky. After a while, she suddenly said, "Old Ling, are you there? Miss, what do you want me to do?" Ling Ying knelt on one knee in front of Zuna respectfully. How is brother Xiao Yan doing recently? Zuna asked softly. The latest news I received is that Master Xiao Yan took the Azure Lotus Earth core fire from the serpent people in the Taga Desert by unknown means. He is probably on his way to the capital of the Jama Empire. After all, the agreed time is almost here. Ling Ying answered smoothly. He took the strange fire from the serpent people. You are really worthy of brother Xiao Yan. That is the serpent people who made Yunshan lose. It has been almost 3 years since that day. Brother Xiao Yan, you should also regain your dignity and honor. Zuna muttered to herself with a faint smile on her face. After a moment, she put away her smile and said to Ling Ying with a serious face, "Old Ling, you go to brother Xiao Yan and make sure to protect his safety. I'm worried that Yunlin sect may be disadvantaged after losing, but, miss, your safety." Ling Ying hesitated. "I have the means left by my father. No one in this northwest continent can hurt me." Zuna responded. Ling Ying hesitated for a while and finally nodded. Yes. Chapter 408 The Goal of Change. Amon reached out to take the fire of destiny and refined it in an instant. The flames surged instantly, and the flames that were originally the size of a thumb became as big as a fist. Amon eroded Xiao Yan's destiny more and caused more impact, but Xiao Meng was more closely integrated, so she was the first to awaken the beast fire. At this moment, these disturbances of fate have become the nourishment of this flame, helping it grow. After getting the flame of destiny, the message about the flame naturally appeared in Amon's mind. When a person is burned out by the fire of fate, his own existence will disappear, and such disappearance will bring contradictions to the world, so something is needed to fill the disappeared existence. For its own smooth operation, the rules of the world will default to Amon's replacement of the disappeared person. However, this kind of replacement has a limit. The stronger the person and the closer the relationship with the disappeared person, the easier it is to detect the incompatibility point. If the disappearance is too sudden and causes too much chaos, then Amon himself will have to bear the backlash from the rules of the world. Amon can replace Xiao Meng so easily because she is Xiao Meng in a sense, but without the body of the host, the impact is very small. Xiao Yan couldn't notice the change in Xiao Meng, and Zuna couldn't notice the change in Xiao Meng. Their strength was not strong enough. They would only think that the current Xiao Meng was the original Xiao Meng. Even if Xiao Meng's appearance, personality, and habits have changed, they will think that this is how it should be. Su Kan couldn't notice the change in Xiao Meng. Although he was strong enough compared to the current Xiao Meng, He knew too little about Xiaomeng. Yaochan is powerful enough and familiar enough with Xiaomeng, but he will also subconsciously ignore the past. The spiritual insect parasitizing in his soul will give him psychological hints, making him unable to see certain abnormalities. Ling Ying may find some incongruity, but the incongruity is not strong enough for him to see the truth. The substitution of fate is easiest to detect in the initial period, and then as time goes by, the possibility of detection becomes smaller and smaller. Amon put away the flame and thought about his next move. He is a magical beast bred by the rules of heaven and earth, and it is not the rules of Daoqi continent, but the high rules of the entire Daopio universe. The beast fire he gave birth to was even higher in nature than the strange fire in the Daoqi plane. Counting King Lian's earth core fire, he already has 2 special flames. With a leap in combat effectiveness, the original plan is no longer appropriate. It turns out that when there was only one kind of strange fire, it was the least difficult way to go to the inner earth world to find the fallen heart flame that died in its infancy. If you can't find it, then release the one imprisoned in the Xianfen key refining tower and take advantage of the chaos to find opportunities. Now that he had the second kind of flame, he suddenly found that he was more sure of killing Hanfeng and seizing his Hazen iron. Amon walked out while thinking about a new plan, leaving Xiaomeng in a daze. What do you think the main body will do next? Asked a spiritual worm. Probably to take away the fallen heart flames. After all, the only things that Canon College deserves his attention are the 2 fallen heart flames in the ancient emperor's cave below. No matter how much we think of the cave of the ancient emperor Tuosh, it is not what we think now. Reachable, Xiaomeng stood up and walked to the window, looking at the quiet night sky with a calm expression. After being separated from that body, I feel that you seem to be a little smarter. The spirit insect complained. I have always had your illusion. Xiaomeng replied with a moving voice. The spirit insect suddenly smiled and said with a bit of schadenfreude, since the main body plans to take away the fallen heart flame, the sky burning key refining tower will lose its effect. So, your fire energy will be wasted. The expression on Xiaomeng's face froze. She blankly took out her fire crystal card and looked at the numbers on it. There was no movement for a long time. She fell heavily on the soft bed like a petrified sculpture. The true body of God. The spirit worm arched his head and responded, okay, it is indeed my illusion that you have become smarter or something. Returning to his residence, Amon tried to imbue the fire of destiny with intelligence. Unfortunately, he tried several times and failed. It seems that this kind of flame can only be used as his own accompanying flame, but cannot become a real living thing like a strange fire. Amon wasn't disappointed either. The inability to separate to form a single individual didn't have much of an impact. A spiritual insect with 12 rings and a star-like color crawled out of Xiaomengru's body. With a burst of distorted light, the spiritual insect transformed into a thin young man wearing a black classical robe and a pointed hat. The main body Amon. Amon's body looked at the spiritual insect bearing Xiaomengru's appearance and said softly, then I ask you to maintain your status as a student of Canon College. Leave it all to me. Amon will do the work. Aren't you worried? Xiaomengru stroked his monocle with a smile on his lips. After explaining some things, Amon ran towards the outside of the basin. He didn't use his Daoqi wings to fly. That would be too high profile and could easily attract Sukan's attention. While running, he used the fighting skills summarized by Xiaomeng, and his fighting spirit continued to flow between his legs. After passing through wide streets and tall pavilions, he came to the edge of the basin in the inner courtyard. At the edge of the basin, there is a huge bang covering the entire basin. This bang has no defensive function, but it can mark and alarm the monsters that break into the inner courtyard. After the alarm, the law enforcement team will come to kill the monsters that break in. There are also students who will take on the task of cleaning up the monsters in order to earn fire energy. The identification method of this ban is very rough. As long as you control your fighting spirit and restrain your breath, you will not be judged as a monster. However, this is enough. After all, it is only some low-level monsters with little intelligence that are on guard. Those high-level monsters that can restrain their own breath will not come and to seek death point. After leaving the inner courtyard, Amon immediately turned his fighting spirit into wings and quickly flew towards the vast mountains and forests. After breaking through to Douluo, the overall volume has further increased, but due to time constraints, he has not yet expanded the size of the clone to the limit point for the next action. Amon decided to make up for the missing and empty shares after all. Medicine King Hanfeng is a Douluo peak warrior, and he has a strange fire, so he deserves his careful treatment point in addition to quickly accumulating soul power through the soul devouring talent to make up for the gap. Amon also needs to make a few friends. I believe these warm-hearted Warcraft friends are willing to help. There are many targets that were recorded on the way from the outer courtyard to the inner courtyard, which greatly saved Amon's time. Chapter 409 Buddha 039 S Angry Lotus. Between the vast mountains and forests, lush forests spread out like a green ocean point. The leaves undulate like waves, and the breeze blows, and the green leaves make a rustling sound. Point. A feeling of vitality came on coming, as if thousands of elves were dancing. Point. Smelling the scent of soil and plants, Amon walked among the woods. After reaching a certain area, this clone unabashedly exuded the aura of the peak Dalwang, with hostility and provocation in the aura. Point. On a cliff a few kilometers away, a monster with a wolf-like face and tiger-like stripes stood upright. Its claws had a layer of metal-like armor and its scalloped eyes widened. It casually pulled out the broadsword made of bone that was stuck on a nearby stone, its size revealing violence and ferocity. Without the slightest hesitation, it released the terrifying aura of the 6th level monster, kicked off its legs, and rushed towards the direction of Amon's clone. As the overlord of Warcraft in this area, it cannot tolerate other Warcraft running wild here. That would be a challenge to its dominance. Such challenges can only serve as a warning to others by dying. The distance of several kilometers was almost within sight at the speed of the 6th order monster. It rushed to the front of Amon's clone in a few breaths. It was like a cannonball falling down. It stepped deeply into the ground with its legs. Make a deep hole. Its nose twitched, and the skin on the wolf's upper jaw wrinkled, revealing a row of white teeth. Amon's body was so small in front of the several foot tall Warcraft overlord, but his face did not change at all. He looked at the huge monster in front of him, and stroked his monocle. Oh, it's a tiger and wolf beast. It seems you are lucky to be able to grow to the 6th level. The tiger and wolf beast stared at Amon. A trace of doubt flashed in his eyes, and said in a rough voice, "Human? No, Warcraft? What a strange aura. Forget it, it's not important. You dare to issue such a provocation on my territory? Are you ready to die?" A smile appeared on Amon's face. "Actually, I'm just here to make friends with you. The Vice Dean taught me how to work as a team." Vice Dean? Are you a student of that college? Hahaha, you actually said that you want to make friends with me, so shouldn't you give me a meeting gift? If you come to visit empty-handed, I will be angry. The eyes of the tiger and wolf beast flashed with cold light. Although they will not take the initiative to attack the griffins of Cannon College traveling between the inner and outer courtyards, if the students themselves run into their territory and are killed, Cannon College will not retaliate. This is a tacit understanding formed between them. Amon didn't seem to hear the chill in its tone, and the smile on his face was still gentle. Of course there is a meeting gift. His right hand was in the shape of a pistol, with his index finger pointed at the huge monster, as if pulling the trigger and triggering recoil from the ammunition. He raised his right hand upwards. A ball of cyan and gold was flying forward quickly. The energy fluctuations coming from the ball were not very violent, but the light had a creepy feeling. It activated its innate skills without any hesitation, and a large amount of metal emerged from its body, covering itself. At the same time, he held the big knife horizontally in front of him, making a blocking gesture. The cyan and golden flames on the ball suddenly came together, and then, as if a fission reaction had occurred, terrifying energy fluctuations emanated from the flames that had turned into an irregular shape. Then, pure, blazing light enveloped everything, blooming like a supernova explosion of light and heat. Looking from a distance, you can see a bright light group rising from the ground, illuminating the dark sky like daylight. Buddha's angry fire lotus. Xiao Yan's unique skill in the original work was reproduced by Amon at this moment. Although his attack is not in the shape of a fire lotus, the principle is the same. Point in the rules of fighting to break the world. This fusion of strange flames between heaven and earth is simply like an atomic bomb, capable of bursting out extremely terrifying power under normal circumstances. The two flames are in a confrontational posture when they meet. The flame formed by the fusion of Fenju is a perfect fusion, showing a stable posture. So no fission reaction will occur, only a certain will controls two flames at the same time and forcibly fuses them. The unstable fusion of the flames will cause that terrible fission. Point. This is also the reason why Xiao Yan needs to separate his own flames before using the Buddha's angry fire lotus. Therefore, apart from practicing Fenju, few people can have more than two flames in their bodies at the same time, because if you are not careful, fission reactions will occur. Amon does not practice Fenju, but he has no such trouble. The fire of destiny is his own beastly fire, which he has perfect control over. The rest of the strange fires also exist in the form of Amon, and are controlled by their own Amons. Will point. The alien fire Amons can coexist in Amon's body, and they are distinct, and do not interfere with each other. Point. Amon's use of Buddha's wrath lotus is not as troublesome as Xiao Yan's. It requires a lot of concentration, and will backfire on him if he is not careful. Point. He only needs to separate a spiritual insect to carry his own fire of destiny. Let alien fire Amon separate a spiritual insect to carry the alien fire, and then let the two spiritual insects entangled but distinct to rush towards the enemy. Point. Just wait until you are near the opponent, and then use merge to fuse the two flames into an unstable posture. Point. This is the same idea as in Douluo world, where two spiritual insects each carry stolen ice cyclones and fire cyclones, gather near the enemy, and launch the god level ice and fire annihilation. Point. This is also the idea of using the bomb to press two uranium blocks that have not reached the critical point together in the detonation device of the atomic bomb, so that when they reach the critical point, a chain reaction will occur. The disadvantage is that before the convergence, if the opponent is strong enough, the two spiritual insects can be annihilated before they have time to converge. Point. However, this situation usually does not happen, because Amon will not face such an enemy. Even if he does face it due to unavoidable reasons, he will basically give up resistance to avoid exposing more of his trump cards in the inner courtyard. The face of the great elder Sukayan, who was wearing a black robe, suddenly changed, and his calm expression showed a bit of surprise and solemnity. Great elder, what's wrong? An elder on the side was a little confused. His perception is still unable to detect the movement happening at such a long distance. The energy fluctuations are so strong that they may even pose a threat to me. Who is fighting? I'll go take a look. After saying that, he disappeared from the spot in an instant and appeared in the distant sky. Point. He stepped in the air, and every time he took a step, he flew far away and disappeared from the sight of the Dawang elder in a few flashes. Black Corner Domain, Maple City. Point. In a secluded pavilion somewhere, a handsome man in green clothes with a maple leaf embroidered on the back suddenly raised his head and looked at the place where the energy exploded. Point. There was a bit of surprise in his eyes. Why does it feel like a strange fire? In that direction, the territory of Cannon College, there is indeed a strange fire in it. Although he knew that there might be strange fires in Cannon Academy, he would not act rashly until the target was clearly identified. Point. After all, it is a huge thing, and it must not be taken lightly. However, you must be prepared first, he murmured to himself. Point. Then he said, here comes someone. A man dressed in black appeared in front of him and knelt on one knee. Go and find a way to bribe a few students from the inner courtyard of Cannon College and ask them to help me keep an eye on the information about the strange fire. Yes, the man in black replied respectfully. Point. The light like the sun gradually dissipated, and the sky returned to the darkness that was still unclear. The originally silent mountain forest began to boil, and the roars of monsters resounded throughout. Point. Countless monsters raced away from the area that frightened them and had been reduced to scorched earth by an extreme force. Point. Even those 5th level monsters did not dare to approach. They restrained their aura and stared at the place where the explosion occurred with vigilance and a bit of fear. Big trees fell in all directions. One side of the tree had turned into charcoal, and wisps of green smoke came out of the trunks. The air is filled with hot breath, and the fire attribute energy is particularly active. The ground is warm and exudes a dense air. A large pit appeared at the place where Amon and the tiger and wolf beast met. The closer to the center, the higher the temperature of the ground. You can even see semi-solidified magma. The huge wolf-headed monster was lying on the ground. It looked particularly miserable. There was no intact fur on its body, and large areas of charred flesh were exposed, exuding the aroma of barbecue. As a 6th level monster, its tenacious vitality allows it to retain its breath. But it is already very weak, and if left unchecked, he may die soon. Wearing a black classical robe, a pointed soft hat of the same color, and a monocle on his right eye, the young man stepped on the semi-solidified magma, looked at the Warcraft overlord who was almost dying, and said with a tut, "Well, I was a little unskilled when I used it the first time. I misjudged the power of this move, and it almost killed you. It's my fault. I will definitely correct it next time." He also looked a bit embarrassed. His clothes were messy, and his hair had some signs of being burnt. Only the monocle on his right eye was still clean and spotless. The lens of Amon's right eye reflected a bright starlight, and a beam of light shot out from his chest and entered the body of the dying giant monster. Dots of starlight lit up from the body of the monster, and countless tiny worms were swimming in and out of its body. They adhere to the flesh and blood one by one, repairing important organs, clearing the meridians, allowing Dao Qi to flow normally, connecting blood vessels, and allowing blood to flow. A spiritual worm penetrated into the brain, and countless tiny threads protruded from its body, touching various parts of the brain. Then, it seemed to melt, and merged with the tiger and wolf beast's brain. After the initial healing by the spiritual insects, the breath of this dying 6th level monster gradually stabilized. Its closed eyes reopened, and there was a faint hint of starlight in them. Chapter 410 SYNOPSIS S guess. After parasitizing the tiger wolf beast, Amon did not stop there, and immediately went to find the second 6th level monster. This was a huge python that was dozens of feet long. Its huge body was coiled on a towering ancient tree, and its snake tongue was lightly spitting out, looking down coldly at the humans below. The distance between the two 6th level monsters was very far, and the soul of the monster was relatively weak, so it only vaguely noticed the previous battle, and did not take it to heart. It didn't even say a word. After confirming that Amon was the one who was unscrupulously showing off his momentum in its territory, it immediately opened its bloody mouth and pounced on him. This Amon did not resist at all, and let it swallow him. Then, the Buddha's wrath lotus bloomed. The huge python raised its head and screamed, then fell down powerlessly. With the experience of the first time, Amon deliberately weakened the power of the Buddha's wrath lotus this time. But because the giant snake's defense was not as good as the tiger wolf beast, and it exploded in its body after swallowing Amon, it died directly. TSK, it's a bit of a waste. Amon, wearing a black robe, walked out of the dense forest and dug out its magic core point. Just as he was about to leave, he paused again, looked at the giant snake's body, and chuckled. Well, waste is not a good habit. Several soul worms turned into streams of light and shot into the body. Then, a transparent python emerged from the body and struggled frantically. This is its soul. The soul of the magic beast is relatively weak in comparison, but that is also compared with humans of the same level. As a 6th level magic beast, its soul will not be much worse. No matter how weak it is, the soul is a very mysterious field. The soul bodies of most creatures will only instinctively resist external invasion. Facing the soul worm, the giant python's soul was eaten up without any resistance. The size of a soul worm reached the limit of a single clone, and then it split autonomously to form two soul worms with weaker breath. These spirit worms that gnawed the giant python's soul were different from normal spirit worms. They were more evil and crazy, and were vaguely entangled with ominous black fog. They were all forcibly promoted in a short period of time by devouring a large number of magic beast souls through the soul devouring talent. They were mixed with a lot of chaotic wills and negative emotions. If it weren't for the forced suppression of the main body's will, they would have been out of control long ago. Amon didn't care about their madness. He just needed to keep it stable overall. These crazy spirit worms were just consumables. It was just right to leave them to complete the work of sending death in battle, such as launching the Buddha's wrath lotus, parasitic magic beasts launching suicide attacks, etc. In addition to the main body taking the strange fire Amon to find the 6th level magic beast, some other Amons also hunted other low level magic beasts in the forest. and devoured their souls through the soul-devouring talent to strengthen themselves. Of course, they were very careful not to devour themselves, but to split a smallest unit of spirit worms and let it devour, so as to avoid the normal Amon from being polluted. Sukan came to the place where Amon defeated the tiger wolf beast, and frowned as he looked at the deep pit below. The burning breath in the air let him know that one of the two warring parties was a strong man who used the power of fire attribute. According to his understanding, there was no fire attribute beast nearby that was so powerful that could cause such damage. Was it a new beast that had just migrated here recently, or was someone hunting for magic cause? The attributes of the other party made Sukan slightly alert. After all, the strange fire was not only attractive to alchemists, but also to all the strong men of fire attribute. Even if the visitor did not know about the fallen heart flame, the strange fire under the Shianfen refining key tower had a tendency to riot recently. If he was sensed by it, it might cause trouble. He shouted loudly, "Who are you, my friend, fighting here? I'm Sukan, the great elder of Canon Academy. Please come out and see me, please. Come out and see me." There was no response. His face was solemn, and he felt that the person who caused this scene had not left yet. For some reason, he felt like he was being watched. An invisible force surged out of Sukan's body, scanning the surroundings inch by inch, but found nothing. Amon had long expected that Sukan might come to check, so he deliberately left a few spirit insects to parasitize on the microorganisms in the air. Amon's concealment ability was extremely effective when facing soul power reconnaissance, so Sukan's use of soul power to scan the surroundings was doomed to be futile. Sukan was about to pretend to leave, deceiving those who might be hiding in the dark and spying. However, before he left, another small sun rose from a distance. This time, he was closer, and could more clearly feel the terrible and violent firepower at the place where the explosion occurred. This power was somewhat similar to the riot of the fallen heart flame in the Shianfen refining key tower. Strange fire. Without any hesitation, he rushed to the place where the violent energy fluctuations came from. Not long after he arrived at his destination. There was also a deep pit here, but the difference was that there was a corpse of a giant python in the center of the deep pit. Sukan was shocked by the sight of the charred, miserable 6th level python. Apart from the big pit, there were no other signs of fighting at the scene. Who on earth was it? Killed 2 6th level monsters in such a short time. Judging from the energy fluctuations in the record, he must be at least a Daohuan peak warrior. Sukan suddenly thought of a name. Medicine Emperor Han Feng. The other party's Feng Cheng is not far from here, and Han Feng has a strange fire, and is a strong man at the peak of Daohuan. All the conditions seem to match. Thinking of the other party's identity as a 6th grade alchemist, Sukan secretly guessed. Could it be that he wants to refine some high-level elixir? Feng Cheng once again felt some energy similar to strange fire coming from afar, and Han Feng was a little eager to move. He finally suppressed his idea of going over to check, and whispered to himself, "What is going on at Canon Academy? Amon's third target is a bird monster, the wind-splitting eagle. This is a wind-attributed monster, known for its extremely fast speed. They are very aggressive, and like to eat people. On a cliff, the wind is howling. The wind is cold, like a sharp knife. Blowing on the face makes people hurt. Below is a bottomless mountain stream, emitting a trace of cold air, like a passage leading directly to the underworld. Amon stood on a rock, looking at the huge eagle's nest in front of him, raised his right hand, pinched the upper and lower edges of his monocle with his index finger and thumb, and slowly raised the corners of his mouth, outlining a smile. This gale eagle is extremely powerful, far surpassing the previous tiger wolf beast and giant python, probably the difference between Queen Medusa and Hyperion. If you rush over directly, there is a high possibility of overturning. So Amon did not act rashly, but waited patiently, ready to wait for it to leave the nest, and then attack the cubs in the nest and use it to set a trap. Chapter 411 Preparation. Sukan did not stay in the forest for too long. After waiting for some time, and not finding anyone who killed the tiger wolf beast and the giant python, he left. Although he was wary of this mysterious strong man, he did not want to find him out. If the other party really dared to set his sights on the falling heart flame, he would let the other party know that Cannon Academy was not easy to mess with. Amon in the air, watched Sukain leave, and passed the message to his main body, letting him know that he could let go. At the eagle's nest, the handsome golden blue giant eagle flapped its wings and flew high into the sky, making a loud eagle cry. Amon took advantage of its departure and came to the huge eagle's nest. This is a huge cave dug on the cliff. There are complex passages inside, and a large number of bones are piled in the passages. Amon followed his perception and walked to the deepest part of the nest. These dug passages are connected to a natural cave in which 3 little eagles are chasing and playing. Their feathers had not yet grown, but they were already 3rd level monsters with fierce light flashing in their eyes, even when they were looking at their brothers. After discovering Amon, the uninvited guest, they surrounded him one after another, with a bit of teasing and cruelty in their eyes. The wine-splitting eagle was naturally bloodthirsty and cold-blooded, even to its own kind, and sometimes even to its own kind. Amon stroked his monocle, and the lens burst into pure light, and the bright light illuminated the originally somewhat dark cave. Several starlights merged into the bodies of the young wine-splitting eagles in a flash. Under the suppression of the 2 major levels, they became Amon's hosts without any resistance, and were controlled by the spirit worm. When Amon walked out, he saw the adult wine-splitting eagle, who had returned at some point, and was blocking the entrance of the cave, and looking at him coldly. The sharp eyes were full of tyranny and bloodthirstiness. Amon raised his eyebrows. The other party seemed to have discovered him a long time ago. He pretended to leave, and used the young eagle in the nest as bait to lure him out. The wine-splitting eagle opened his mouth and spit out a tornado, composed of countless wind blades. The constantly rotating wind blades swallowed Amon in an instant. His arms, legs, body, and head were broken inch by inch. Finally, the eyeball of his right eye was cut in half with the monocle, leaving only a pool of blood on the spot. After killing Amon, the wine-splitting eagle snorted coldly, "You little rascals dare to peek into my nest." It walked into the cave and saw 3 lively little eagles. A slight surprise appeared on its face. Then, it nodded with satisfaction. "Not bad. They are all alive. Much better than the last batch of garbage." The 3 cubs jumped to its side and looked extremely frightened. The wind-attributed fighting spirit of the wine-splitting eagle surged, blowing away several young eagles. Fear is the most unnecessary emotion. Such a panic-stricken coward cannot survive in this forest. But soon, it showed a look of fear in its eyes. The 3 young eagles all turned into light. Endless light and heat burst out, surrounding it, accompanied by a deafening roar. The cave collapsed, a gap was blown out of the cliff, and a large amount of rubble rolled down the mountain stream and disappeared into the bottomless darkness. And Amon appeared in the rubble, sensed the breath, and used the Azure Lotus Earth Core Fire to melt a passage and walked towards the place where the wine-splitting eagle was buried. He used the same trick to parasitize the seriously injured and unconscious giant eagle, and left without hesitation. Before leaving, he turned his head and looked at a forest in the distance, raised the corners of his mouth, and outlined a smile. A delicate little girl lay in the bushes, not daring to move, with a bit of fear on her dirty face. After Amon left, she climbed out carefully and let out a long sigh. "I'm scared to death. Where did this guy come from? He actually kept hunting 6th level monsters. What's more, many medicinal materials were destroyed." She didn't dare to stay too long, worried that the scary guy would come back, so she left in a hurry. Not long after, Sukain came to the scene again, feeling the familiar heat in the air. He took a deep breath, and his expression became more solemn. He also knew that this wind-breaking eagle was not even likely to be taken down by himself at the opponent's speed, but he didn't expect that he would be killed by the poisonous hand. What exactly did the mysterious man who hunted monsters want to do? Amon continued his actions. After the wind-breaking eagle, he controlled 2 more 6th level monsters, and another one was accidentally blown to death by him. Even in such a large forest, there were not many level 6 monsters. After being slaughtered by Amon, the remaining monsters became alert. The monsters that rarely communicated with each other on weekdays and were wary of each other were also showing a tendency to unite. Those with good relationships even moved together. Sukain was annoyed by the frequent explosions. He watched a level 6 monster for several days, but still did not get any more results. He reluctantly gave up the idea of finding the mysterious person, but ordered the elders to strengthen the vigilance and make the review of the inner courtyard students going out more strict. In addition to the elder Sukan, who was present almost every time, Han Feng also came and confirmed the existence of the strange fire. However, for a flame that had been subdued by someone, he did not dare to act rashly before he locked down the true identity of the person, fearing that he would alert the enemy. He secretly increased his infiltration into Cannon College. The temptation of the strange fire was enough to make him take risks and stroke the tiger whiskers of this behemoth. When Han Feng arrived, Amon noticed him, but after weighing the pros and cons, he did not attack him. In such a forest, where monsters are rampant, the other party is very vigilant, and it is not a good time to attack. Without sufficient confidence, Amon will not attack casually. If he fails, it will be difficult to attack again. In addition, the monsters that were parasitized and controlled by him were all seriously injured. Although they were repaired to a certain extent with a spirit worm, their combat effectiveness was still greatly reduced, and they needed time to recuperate. After controlling 4 6th level monsters and preparing enough full level spirit worms, Amon did not continue to kill, but patiently waited for the 6th level monsters to recover their combat effectiveness. In a courtyard, in the medicine storehouse. Elder Heo, who was in charge of the herbs, looked at the little girl in white who had slipped into the storeroom at some point, then looked at the messy counter behind her, blinked, and then screamed, "Why are you here again? You come here every now and then to have a bite. If you want to eat, can't you go to the mountains to find it yourself?" Yan chewed the herbs while muttering, "I only come here occasionally to get them, and I find most of them myself, but the mountains are too dangerous recently. There is a weird guy hunting monsters everywhere, and I'm worried that he will not be able to come back." "Weird guy?" Elder Heo frowned as he thought of the series of measures issued by the Great Elder recently. "Do you know what happened in the deep mountains?" "Well, I have seen that guy." Yan nodded. "Can you draw his appearance? This is very important." Elder Heo looked serious. Yan rolled her eyes and responded, "Okay, but you have to give me 3 more herbs." Elder Heo rolled his eyes. "It's as if you won't take them yourself if I don't give them to you." He waved his hand casually and gave the 3 herbs closest to Yan. However, the twitching of his face still showed that he was very distressed about this. Yan picked up the herbs and smiled and stretched out her hand to draw the appearance of Amon on the ground. Her painting was very abstract, but some of the main iconic features could still be vaguely seen. Classical robes, pointed soft hats, and monocles. After finishing the painting, Yan said, "This guy is very strange. His aura is a bit like a demon beast, but also a bit like the thing under the Xianfen refining key tower. In short, it's very dangerous." Elder Heo copied Yan's abstract painting and walked towards the office of the Great Elder. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 412 Corporate Culture. Black Corner Domain. Black Wine City. A thin young man wearing a black robe, a pointed soft hat, and a monocle wearing a lens on his right eye was walking slowly on the street. Although it is very close to Cannon College, the atmosphere in this city is not good. Even in the chaotic Black Corner Domain, it ranks among the best in terms of the degree of chaos. Bad order is also a kind of order in cities farther away. There are often 1 or 2 or 3 forces that spontaneously form an order that is beneficial to themselves and maintain it. Because Black Wine City is too close to Cannon College, there is no force that can rule a city. Therefore, there is no even bad order. However, this kind of chaos is more conducive to the student's experience. It can not only make them feel the most primitive natural law of the jungle, let them understand the importance of strength in this fighting spirit continent, but also avoid provoking too powerful a force. In addition, many students often understand, after paying a certain price, that their goodwill must be selectively revealed, and they cannot let this become their weakness when they are exposed to the sight of those greedy beasts. Black Wine City. which is chaotic, but not strong overall, has controlled this price within a certain range, so that most students can afford it. Amon knew how to show his goodwill very well. He spent half a month pretending to be a doctor, and became a well-known good person and kind person on the street. However, he did not. How many people dare to underestimate him? GG. It's really ironic that a guy like you can actually have a good reputation. A gloomy voice suddenly sounded in the ears of Amon's clone, who was marked by the Soul Palace mark. Amon's steps stagnated slightly, then he changed the direction of travel, turned right at a corner ahead, and entered a small alley. A month has passed since the last time I met the Protector Zio, and reached an agreement with him. Protector Zio was very trustworthy, and came as promised. Amon stroked his monocle, raised the corners of his mouth, and smiled. Dragon Protector, you may have some misunderstanding about me. I'm a good person, Protector. Zio was non-committal, and threw a scroll over. Here, this is the scroll of the soul binding secret method. It is not free. You need to pay off the price within 1 year. GG, but you don't have to worry, just complete the tasks I give you regularly. The contribution of the tasks during this year will exactly offset your debt. Amon found the scroll, thought for a moment and said, does that mean that if I pay off my debt in advance, I can use my soul to accumulate contributions in advance, and then exchange them for various powerful fighting skills, secret techniques, and elixirs? As soon as he heard what he said, Protector Zio felt a sudden change in his heart and said quickly, you kid, don't keep thinking about killing. Sooner or later you'll offend someone you can't afford to offend. I don't want to be implicated by you and be hunted down. He hesitated for a moment, scratched his chin and said, well, actually, if you urgently need to exchange your contribution points for something, the issue of debt is not non-negotiable. Our Soul Palace is also managed in a humane manner. Amon raised his eyebrows and said in a strange tone, humanized? Yes, although you are not yet a formal member of the Soul Palace, I will also explain to you some of the rules of our Soul Palace. Protector Zio cleared his throat and said, except for completing the minimum task standards, we can move freely with basically no other restrictions. If there are other tasks that require you to participate, except for those that are particularly urgent and important, they are basically awarded in the form of a reward. Whether you go or not is completely voluntary. Of course, the emergency call cannot be refused, but correspondingly, rich enough rewards will be given, which will be 3 to 4 times that of ordinary equivalent tasks. There will also be contribution points rewards for completing the bottom line task indicators. Based on the bottom line task indicators, the better your performance, the higher the reward will be. The Soul Palace adopts a clear pricing system, and there are clear regulations on how much contribution value a soul of any level corresponds to. In addition, if you are on the verge of a breakthrough and need to spend a lot of time in retreat, resulting in the inability to complete the minimum task volume, you can also apply to your immediate superior to make appropriate reductions in the task volume, or to postpone submission. After you become a formal member, you can also participate in competitions organized by the palace. Those who perform well in the competition will have the opportunity to enter certain secret realms or obtain powerful secret techniques. Don't think that we are too evil. Anyway, we can only reach the spiritual realm. Protector Zio suddenly paused and then changed his words. Anyway, the souls of most people cannot survive after the body dies, and we are just using waste. Most of the time, we are just providing soul burial services, so don't always think about causing death yourself. That will create too many unnecessary enemies. At the end of the day, Protector Zio was quite sincere in his words. In short, he just tried to persuade Amon to be kind. Amon looked a little weird and said, it seems that the rules are much looser than many sects, and the treatment sounds pretty good. When Protector Wu recruited Yan Jin before, he didn't explain it in such detail. Protector Zio smiled arrogantly and said, of course, otherwise, why do you think our Soul Palace can grow to this extent, attracting so many strong men to join? As long as you work hard, it's not too difficult to complete the basic task indicators. However, most people will not be satisfied with the basic task indicators and will try to get a higher level of rewards, and this is difficult. The Rumors that the Soul Palace hunts strong people everywhere and seizes souls are true. In order to get more contribution points, many guardians will do this. When everyone is completing higher level tasks, you still only complete the lowest level, which is somewhat inappropriate and may be disliked by the elders. This is something that formal members above the guardians need to consider. You don't have to think so much for the time being. Just complete the tasks I assigned to you. The Owl Guardian emphasized the 4 words "be contented" again, as if he was worried about something. He handed a booklet to Amon. After taking it, the latter took a quick look and found that it was a correspondence table between souls and contribution points, items that can be exchanged for contribution points, and a guide to completing novice tasks. When he saw the last novice guide, Amon's face became even more strange. The Owl Guardian said with some pride, "This is what I wrote specifically for you. Don't mess around at the beginning. Refer to my experience and do it. This can save you a lot of trouble. By the way, as your guide, while you are still working under me, I will charge 30% of your contribution points as a commission." Amon was silent. The problem is definitely not me, but this Soul Hole Guardian. This is definitely not a normal monster. How can a Soul Hole Guardian be so kind as to explain all the key points? It's good enough that they don't dig holes to pit people. After a long time, Amon said in a grateful and puzzled tone, "Thank you for the Dharma Protector's advice. May I ask if all Dharma Protectors are like this? I have learned some before. Their styles seem to be a little different." The Owl Dharma Protector smiled lightly. "Don't look at my Soul Palace from a one-sided perspective. I have said that our management is relatively loose and everyone has their own style. In addition, you are my first offline, so just treat it as a preferential treatment I give you. Do a good job and don't let me down." After leaving this sentence, the Owl Dharma Protector turned into a black mist and disappeared in front of Amon. Amon's eyes were slightly condensed. The Owl Dharma Protector seemed not simple compared to the worker like the Wu Dharma Protector. This one was more like a college student who had no life pressure and had just entered the society. He raised his right hand, touched the bottom edge of his monocle with his index finger knuckles, smiled, and guessed to himself, "Heh, interesting. Is it a Soul Clan disciple who came to experience?" Chapter 413 Sneaking into Maple City. After half a month of recuperation, and with the repair of the bodies by the spirit insects, the 4 6th level monsters parasitized by Amon finally recovered most of their combat effectiveness. These 4 monsters are the Tiger Wolf Beast, the Fierce Wind Eagle, the Lightning Turtle, and the Water Rabbit. While recuperating, many Amons sneaked into Fengcheng and parasitized and controlled some people. Amon originally wanted to try the ability of the Fire of Destiny to burn destiny and replace some people, but failed and was backfired. The clone who tried to replace was directly wiped out by an unknown force. This made Amon more cautious about the Field of Destiny. The rules of the world are different, and the original experience cannot be moved here intact. This is just a small episode, which does not affect Amon's preparations for Han Feng. On a dark and windy night, Amon's body swaggered into Fengcheng with 4 monsters. However, the guards around and the scattered pedestrians on the road seemed to have not seen it. If someone observes carefully, they can find that the people around them are unconsciously pinching their right eye sockets. When Amon led 4 magic beasts into the city, their mouth corners slightly raised, revealing a restrained smile. The risk of attacking Han Feng is not great, but it requires sufficient power support. In order to maximize the success rate, Amon plans to go there in person. In the original work, Xiao Yan, with the strength of the Peak of Dawang, displayed the fusion of 2 kinds of strange fire to become the Buddha's wrathful lotus and directly defeated Han Feng, who had improved his strength 5 years later and stepped into the realm of Daozang. Amon is stronger than Xiao Yan at that time. His main body is Daohuang strength, and his full level clone with the maximum size is equivalent to the Peak of Dawang. He also has 2 kinds of strange fire, controls 4 6th level magic beasts to suppress the formation, and has made sufficient preparations, intending to sneak attack instead of direct confrontation. If this fails to kill Han Feng, it can only be said that this is the arrangement of fate. Han Feng, who was attracted by the huge explosion and went to the mountains around Cannon College to investigate, determined from the breath left at the scene and the induction of his own sea heart flame, that the person who caused such a big commotion also had a strange fire point. This aroused his strong greed. Although he has not locked onto a specific person, he has not taken further action. However, he has sent messages to the leaders of the Blood Sect, the Earth Flame Sect, the Eight Gates and other sects, saying that he may need their help in a while, and asked them to prepare to come to help. In addition, even the first and second masters on the blacklist, the two elders Jin and Yin, also came to Fengcheng to stay for a while at his invitation. Amon received the news from the clone lurking beside Han Feng, and felt a little troubled. The two elders Jin and Yin are both powerful people at the peak of Daohuang. Because of the special skills and fighting skills they practice, they have a complementary effect, so the two of them can fight against Daozang masters together. However, Amon did not change his plan because of them. Even if the two Daohuang peaks were in tune with each other, they were not Daozang after all. Their reaction speed and means of dealing with emergencies would be much different. As long as Han Feng was killed quickly, before they could react, it would be fine. The two elders, Jin and Yin, would not fight him to death for a dead Han Feng. Moreover, Amon was only worried about Han Feng's escape. In terms of combat effectiveness, he was not afraid of the two elders, Jin and Yin. After a little thought, Amon decided to use a clone to hold back the two blacklist masters. There was no need to fight, just to chat and distract their attention a little, so that they would react a few seconds slower when Han Feng was attacked. To be on the safe side, it was better to prepare to fight them at the same time. Thinking of this, Amon put a spirit insect carrying the Azure Lotus Earth Core Fire and the Fire of Destiny on the clone that was about to chat with the two elders, Jin and Yin. If necessary, the two spirit insects could gather at any time and cast the Buddha's Wrath Lotus to force the two of them to protect themselves. This Amon took out a black robe with a big hood from the ring, put it on, and walked towards the residence of the two old men. Jin and Yin, with us near Amon's body, walked towards a large mansion in the center of the city. Han Feng was also wary of the two old men, Jin and Yin, who had the power to threaten him, so he arranged a residence for them at a certain distance from his mansion. The two old men were also very satisfied with this arrangement. Han Feng was afraid and wary of them, so why didn't they wary of Han Feng? It was a proper arrangement to keep a certain distance and leave a suitable space for both parties. In an antique building, an old man in a golden robe and an old man in a silver robe were sitting on a cushion, meditating and resting. The direct energy of heaven and earth gathered with their breathing. A faint airflow circulated between the two of them. After a cycle, they opened their eyes at the same time and looked in a certain direction. Who, hehe, are you? The two old men, Jin and Yin, who are said to be able to fight Daozang on the blacklist, accompanied by a sinister laugh. A figure wearing a black robe and shrouded in a faint black smoke appeared in front of them. Around him, there was a very faint wrinkle in the space that was almost invisible to the naked eye. The two people who were rubbing the threshold of Daozang naturally knew that it was a distorted space. A Daozang master. The black-robed man who appeared in front of them was actually a Daozang master. The muscles of the two elders, Jin and Yin, tensed up, and their eyes were full of solemnity. Jin said solemnly, "What do you want to see us brothers for?" The black-robed man seemed not to notice the slight hostility and defensiveness of the two elders, and said in a relaxed tone, "I want to ask you two, how long have you been stuck at the peak of Daohuang?" The pupils of the two elders shrank, and they had some guesses about what the other party was going to say next, and their breathing became a little faster as expected. The black-robed man continued, "Do you want to become Daozang?" The two looked at each other, and Yin replied, "Who is stuck at this step and doesn't want to cross it? You mentioned this. Is there any way to help us?" "Of course." Under the black robe, Amon outlined a smile. As long as they are interested in the topic he raised and focus on it, then after a while, when the main body takes action against Han Feng, their speed to rescue will be slower. It may not be much slower, but in many cases, a split second may mean the difference between life and death. Have you ever heard of Soul Palace? Soul Palace. This organization, which is very famous in central China, is not well known in some remote areas, but there are people from all over the Blackhorn region, and the two elders Jin and Yin have also received some news from central China. "Ah, you from Soul Palace?" Old Jin became more and more alert. "Yes, there is no need to be so alert. Our Soul Palace does not have a good reputation, and those rumors are basically true. However, that is for outsiders. If you really become one of us, you will find that joining Soul Palace is a very good choice. If our organization's treatment is not generous, how can we attract one strong man after another to join? Amon imitated the tone of the Owl Guardian and said with a bit of pride. Chapter 414 Success. While the clone was pretending to be a member of the Soul Palace, not quite pretending to hold back the two elders, Amon's real body also came to Han Feng's mansion. Han Feng's surroundings had been infiltrated by Amon, his servants, his thugs, his chefs. More than 80% of the people in the mansion had been controlled by Amon. Even now, around the house next to him, in the microorganisms in the air, there were Amons parasitizing one after another, watching him all the time. Knowing all the dynamics of his opponent, Amon walked into the mansion quite calmly, and no one stopped him, because everyone was his own. He walked slowly to the bamboo hut behind the mansion, where Han Feng lived. Recently, Han Feng always felt that something was wrong. Even in his own mansion, he was always in a state of anxiety. He felt that everyone in his mansion was staring at him with greedy prey-gazing eyes, and everyone wanted to kill him. The air seemed to be filled with unknown enemies, and malicious sights came from all directions, making him uneasy and difficult to calm down. However, this seemed to be just his own illusion. Whenever he carefully and rationally observed and analyzed, he could not see anything. He paced in the room anxiously, and blue flames like water flowed out and swept all around. After burning the surrounding air, the malice seemed to disappear, and Han Feng's heart calmed down again. He sighed lightly. What's wrong with me recently? I always think about something. Is it because the news of the strange fire made me too excited? I'm worried that, after I really get the second strange fire, this incomplete burning method can't refine it, or after refining it, it can't be perfectly integrated, leaving a big hidden danger. Damn. Old thing, can't you just give me the skills? Why do you have to restrict my development? Han Feng's eyes flashed with a trace of gloom and resentment. Han K. He raised his voice slightly. I'm here, master. Do you have any instructions? A man in a black robe appeared and knelt on one knee less than 5 meters in front of Han Feng. Any news from Cannon College? Have you found the holder of the strange fire? Han Feng asked softly. Han K lowered his head and answered respectfully. No news has come yet. They seem to have strengthened management. It is difficult to enter and exit the inner courtyard now. Han Feng was a little confused. What does it mean to suddenly strengthen management? Could it be that the people who caused those noises before were not from Cannon College? Are they guarding against him? Thinking of this possibility, he was a little anxious. If the other party is not from Cannon College, then it would take a lot of effort to find him out. Suddenly, an extreme sense of crisis came from behind. Han Feng's face changed drastically. In a hurry, he could only summon the Sea Heart Flame to block the direction of danger. In a glimpse, he saw his confidant Han K's face showing a slightly evil smile, and boundless light and heat bloomed from him. His entire body was vaporized in an instant, and an expanding fireball exploded. Feeling the familiar breath in the fireball, Han Feng screamed in fear and shock. Strange fire. He didn't expect that the strange fire he had been thinking about day and night for the past month would appear in front of him in this form. But it really didn't bring any surprises, but panic and fear. The fierce flames shot up into the sky and spread to the surroundings, raising Han Feng's mansion and a large area around it to the ground. Trees, flowers, bricks, and tiles. Everything was vaporized, leaving only a large pit of crystallized land. The strong impact set off a strong wind that swept across the entire Fengcheng. Feeling the terrifying energy fluctuations, the two elders, Jin and Yan, immediately stood up and looked in horror at the direction of the explosion. What have you considered? At this time, Amon, who pretended to be the guardian of the Soul Palace, also happened to ask. Then, he gently said how, and turned his head to the center of the city. Protector, we too will go check it out first, and we will give you an answer later. Old Jin bowed his hands facing a powerful Daozang. Even if they were anxious, they dared not neglect it, and did not leave without saying goodbye. Amon, pretending to be the protector of the Soul Palace, stood up slowly. I'll go with you. I just happen to be in a good mood. If the two old men Jin and Yun had not been attracted by the Soul Palace protector, they would have arrived at the moment of the energy explosion point. Now they had to delay some time because of their concerns about him. In the somewhat surprised eyes of the two old men Jin and Yun, the Soul Palace protector actually ran from the ground to the center of the city at an unfastened speed. They looked at each other with a trace of suspicion on their faces as if seeing their doubts. The protector Amon laughed. I don't care who died inside. I don't want to be noticed by others. Secrecy is our purpose of action. The two old men Jin and Yun looked at each other and felt that this explanation was quite reasonable. The people in the Soul Palace they knew were also the image of coming and going without a trace point. But I always feel a sense of disillusionment. So this is how you come and go without a trace. Sneak past like a mouse when no one is paying attention, instead of relying on superb body movements and fighting skills. However, when they think of the sneaky Soul Palace guardian below who is like a mouse and can use the power of space, they don't know where to start complaining. Worried about the safety of their employer Han Feng, they quickly rushed to the center of the city. It didn't matter whether Han Feng died or not, but he hadn't paid yet. Just as they were about to approach the center, a strong sense of crisis came, and the dazzling flames shot up into the sky again. They used a lot of fighting spirit and joined forces to condense a shield in front of them to resist the heat and impact coming towards them. Damn it. Yan Leo couldn't help but curse. If Han Feng still had hope of survival the first time, then this time, the hope was very slim. This was indeed the case. After Han Feng discovered that it was a strange fire explosion, he immediately took out the heavenly cold air from the ring and used the extreme cold to reduce the power of the explosion, so he survived. Then Amon immediately added another Buddha's Wrath Lotus. Han Feng had already suffered a lot of injuries after being attacked by the first Buddha's Wrath Lotus, and he died in the explosion of the second Buddha's Wrath Lotus without any surprise. Amon walked to the center of the explosion and took off Han Feng's Yao Hainan ring from his body that had turned to charcoal. A strange suction force burst out from Amon's hand. A slightly transparent soul slowly rose from the body. Amon grabbed his soul and opened his mouth to swallow it. Who are you? The two elders, Jin and Yin, who came late, looked at Amon and asked with a sullen face. Chapter 415, Evacuate Maple City. Amon looked at the two old men in front of him with a gleam in his eyes. After thinking for a moment, he thought that he didn't seem to need to use them, and there was no reason to kill them. Since it had nothing to do with interests, there was no need to waste time entangled with them. He stretched out his right hand, with his thumb and index finger erected, in the shape of a pistol, and pointed at the two old men in gold and silver. A spirit worm with a green flame and a spirit worm with a golden flame, entangled into a ball, and flew towards the 2. Looking at the green and gold fireballs, although they did not feel too intense energy fluctuations from them, their intuition, which had been trained by many times of wandering through life and death, told them that this was very dangerous. The two of them attacked together, using the fastest finger fighting skills to send out finger force and hit the fireball point. Before colliding with their finger force, the two spirit worms launched aggregation. They suddenly merged into one, and the Azure Lotus Earth Core Fire and the Fire of Destiny also merged with it. This kind of flame fusion is unstable. If Amon continues to spend his mind to control it, it can be maintained, but Amon needs its instability. The fireball trembled and then expanded rapidly. A hot force carrying a destructive breath spread. The pupils of the two elders, Jin and Yin, shrank, and they immediately realized that this was the terrible fighting skill that destroyed Han Feng's mansion and caused his death. Can this kind of fighting skill be used casually? Their faces were solemn, and a trace of disbelief flashed in their hearts. The surging fighting spirit surged from the bodies of the two people, and they stretched out their right hands together. After the intersection, the fighting spirit formed a circular air shield to block them. The destructive force that erupted from the fusion and splitting of the different fires swept over the air shield in front of the two elders, Jin and Yin, flickered with a faint light, fluctuating like a lake with ripples. Boy, die. The two elders, Jin and Yin, shouted violently. The circular air shield not only resisted the flame energy, but also absorbed and gathered it. The air shield suddenly shrank, gathering the flame energy just absorbed, and turned into a golden and blue ray that shot towards Amon. Amon did not dodge or resist, allowing himself to be pierced by the ray, turning into blue and golden flames all over the sky, shooting in all directions. Be careful, don't let these flames merge. Yan Leo shouted loudly. Their hands moved quickly, slapping out illusory palm prints to extinguish the sparks. There were too many sparks in the sky. Even if the two of them tried their best, they could only extinguish half of them. The scene they were worried about, where the flames would gather again and cause more explosions, did not happen. But when the two came to their senses, they found that the figure who killed Han Feng had disappeared without a trace. The two of them looked at the charred body on the ground, somewhat unwillingly. An invisible force spread in all directions, searching inch by inch. The two rushed in one direction at the same time. In a remote corner of the city, two corpses of magic beasts were seen, one of which was a tiger wolf beast and the other was a water rabbit. After checking the corpses, Elder Jin said, they are both 6th level magic beasts. They died not long ago, and their magic cores were dug out. There are no signs of fighting here. It should be the same person who attacked Han Feng. Elder Yan made a judgment. They also learned some facts about what happened in the deep mountains before, and Han Feng invited them here for this reason. Just when they were puzzled by the appearance of the magic beast corpses here, a strong sense of crisis came. Bright firelight was reflected in the horrified eyes of Elders Jin and Yan. Amon ambushed her spirit insects in the corpses, and took advantage of the residual energy fluctuations of the magic beast corpses to blow them up by surprise. When the fire dissipated, two embarrassed figures stumbled out of the smoke and dust, emitting a burning breath. They soared into the sky without hesitation, galloping into the distance, and got away from this place of trouble at the fastest speed. Not long after they left, a figure covered in black fog and wearing a black robe appeared in Feng Cheng. He looked at Han Feng, who had turned into a charred corpse, and stretched out his hand forward, and a suction force burst out from his palm. Huh? No soul? The black-robed man retracted his palm, and whispered to himself, it stands to reason that the soul of a 6th grade alchemist should not dissipate so easily. Did the person who killed him directly destroy his soul, or did someone in the same profession come? What a pity. Then, his figure twisted and disappeared on the spot. A huge turtle with lightning flashing on its body was running fast on the ground. There was a faint thunder under its feet. Every step it took could fly forward for dozens of meters. The lightning turtle is a magical beast famous for its speed. Even the wind-breaking eagle, which is also famous for its speed, is not as fast as it, and is left far behind. On the turtle's big head stood a thin young man in a black classical robe. Crossing the wilderness at a very fast speed, the lightning turtle came to a valley, and leaped forward without stopping, jumping into the valley. On its back, a pair of wings made of lightning condensed. The wings vibrated quickly, bringing Amon to the vicinity of the mountain wall. Amon coughed lightly, and his figure suddenly split into two. The spirit bug, which separated and turned into Amon's clone, looked at Amon standing on the back of the turtle, and said, are you asking me to do something dangerous again? As he spoke, he took a step forward, and golden flames appeared on his hands. He stretched out his palm, and the flames suddenly rose with the infusion of Dao Qi, rolling forward, burning a deep cave on the mountain wall. This Amon groaned, and blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. This was the backlash caused by the world rules. After burning the fate of this part of the rock. The fire of destiny is a very dangerous thing. For others, and for Amon himself. Because Amon didn't know what kind of fate a certain person or thing carried, and how much backlash the rules would bring. He was not very familiar with the use of this kind of fire at present, and was still in the exploratory stage. The backlash of the world rules is really terrible. Just burning some stones can actually hurt a peak Dao Wang. Amon sighed. It's not you who was injured. The clone Amon complained. Don't underestimate any stone. Maybe a Dao Emperor sat on it and drank beast milk. Although the fire of destiny is dangerous, it is very useful. Except for Amon himself, other creatures seem to have difficulty sensing its existence, and can only clearly sense it when facing its threat. If you use the Azure Lotus Earth Core Fire or Dao Qi to dig a cave on the rock wall, some people or monsters with sensitive perception in the distance may notice the movement here, but using the fire of destiny can avoid perception. Amon walked into the cave and used the fire of destiny to form a barrier to Block the cave entrance. He opened his mouth and spit out a spirit worm. An illusory soul body slowly floated out from the spirit worm. Chapter 416 See Heart Flame Amon. Chapter 41 Amon Han Feng's soul body remained sober and rational. He looked at the man in the black classical robe in front of him, tried his best to suppress his anger, and asked in a calm voice, "Who are you? Are you from the Soul Palace? I also cooperate with the Soul Palace. If you have any requirements, you can just say it directly. There is no need to go this far." Soul Palace? Well, I guess so. I'm still an intern of the Soul Palace. Amon responded with a chuckle. Han Feng said hurriedly, "The old man Zunleo Mugu of your Soul Palace is my uncle. In addition, I have cooperated with the actions of the Soul Palace. I can be regarded as half of my own, so let me go. I can treat the previous things as if they never happened, and I can also give you benefits. I'm a 6th grade alchemist. As long as you let me go, I will give you free alchemy for life. With your strength and status, you don't have to worry about my revenge." "Uncle, master, cooperate?" Amon raised his right hand, pinched his monocle, and showed a slightly sarcastic smile. "You mean cooperate with our Soul Palace to kill your teacher Yao Zun?" Han Feng's pupils shrank, his mind was shaken, and he said with some disbelief, "You know this connection? Then why do you still want to detain my soul? I have a good relationship with the Soul Palace. If you need anything, you can discuss it. It has nothing to do with the Soul Palace. I want to use your soul to make a deal with Yao Chen. I think he will be very surprised to see you like this." Amon's mouth corners slightly raised back. "Yao Chen? That old immortal is still alive. Well, his state is similar to yours now, so he is alive, and he has found a little junior brother for you." "Heh, junior brother. If he hadn't stopped me from practicing the burning technique and restricted my development, it wouldn't have come to this." Wait, thought suddenly flashed through Han Feng's mind. The man in front of me attacked me with a cyan flame and another special unknown flame. The cyan flame is undoubtedly the 19th ranked Azure Lotus Earth Core fire on the list of strange fires, and the golden flame, although the Sea Heart flame did not give me any feedback, the unreal feeling, should also be a special flame that is not inferior to the strange fire. How could two powerful special flames exist in one person? There is only one possibility. He also practiced the burning decision. You are my junior brother?" Han Feng asked in a dry tone. Amon's eyebrows moved, guessing the reason why. Han Feng guessed so, and he didn't explain, but just said with interest, "Surprised or not, bigger surprises are still to come." He looked at Han Feng's desperate expression, and a happy smile appeared on his face. Han Feng made his last struggle. "You joined the Soul Palace because that old immortal wanted revenge, so he bewitched you to fight against the Soul Palace, right? Believe me, senior brother, this is definitely a road of no return. The power of the Soul Palace is very large, far beyond what you can fight against. I can introduce you to Master Mugu. We can go to him together. He is also an 8th grade alchemist. He can give us guidance no worse than that old immortal. I can also give you the Sea Heart flame. I've thought it through. The burning technique is too dangerous. I gave up. I will switch to another technique in the future. In addition, I will never reveal anything about the burning technique." "Really? Alright then." Amon nodded and forced a smile. Han Feng was slightly stunned. He didn't expect Amon to agree to it. A trace of doubt flashed in his eyes, and this doubt immediately turned into decisiveness. Okay, little brother, I will give you the Sea Heart flame now." A blue flame like a stream of water slowly flowed out of Han Feng's soul body. He saw Amon staring at the Sea Heart flame, looking completely defenseless, with a fierce look in his eyes. Go to hell. He controlled the Sea Heart flame and attacked Amon. Han Feng would not rely on Amon's trustworthiness for his life. At this point, they were already at war to the death. The Sea Heart flame was his last strength. If it was taken away, he would have no chance to turn things around. So, even though he thought Amon would not trust him so easily, and that his defenseless look was very suspicious, he had no choice but to bite the bullet. The Sea Heart flame suddenly surged, and the scorching temperature made the air in the cave scorched. Han Feng's face changed, because the Sea Heart flame had completely left his soul, not just the flame. power, even the origin fire left with it. The departure of the sea heart flame caused him to suffer heavy damage, and his soul seemed to be much weaker. A strange feeling arose, and Han Feng was horrified to find that something was competing with his consciousness for the control of the soul power. If his soul body had not been damaged, he could still resist a little, but now that the sea heart flame was forcibly separated, and he was backlashed, it was difficult to resist at all, and he could only become Amon's puppet in unwillingness and despair. Amon seemed to be talking to himself, and seemed to be explaining to Han Feng, "Why do you think I talk so much nonsense to you? Of course it's for this sea heart flame." Han Feng had no ability to destroy the sea heart flame, so Amon could forcibly seize it, but that would require Han Feng's soul to be completely destroyed. This was not what Amon wanted to see. His soul was still useful. As early as when Han Feng's soul was pulled out of his body, Amon had already parasitized him. However, Han Feng's soul was strong, not much worse than Amon's body, and he knew how to use soul power, so the spirit worms only merged into his soul. Like Yao Chen, it was difficult to completely seize control in a short period of time. Afterwards, Amon deliberately chatted with him to distract his attention, causing his emotions to fluctuate violently. The spirit worms took the opportunity to secretly parasitize the sea heart flame and seize control of the sea heart flame. Although the sea heart flame was refined by Han Feng, it was not a soul after all, and Amon's parasitism did not arouse his vigilance. When Han Feng mobilized the sea heart flame and used it to attack Amon, the spirit worms seized the opportunity and brought out the original fire of the sea heart flame. The stripping of the alien fire would cause great harm to the original owner of the alien fire, and Han Feng's soul was severely damaged. But it did not cause the soul to collapse. So Amon successfully seized the sea heart flame and saved Han Feng's soul. The sea heart flame, controlled by Amon, was quietly suspended in the air, as quiet as a pool of water, and there was no sign of its violent nature as a foreign fire. Amon smiled, with starlight shining in his monocle, and a spirit worm rushed towards the sea heart flame and parasitized it. Before the spirit worm and the sea heart flame were completely merged, Amon, who controlled the sea heart flame, immediately separated a trace of the source of foreign fire and separated it from the spirit worm that had not yet been completely merged. The spirit worm merged into the separated source of foreign fire and became the spirit of foreign fire. Of being that was both the foreign fire sea heart flame, and Amon was born. Chapter 417, Deprivation of the Right to Vote. Amon activated the aggregation, and one spiritual insect after another merged into the alien fire sea heart flame. Amon. He grew rapidly, from a spark of fire to the peak of Douluo. As for the original Hazeline who was parasitized by Amon, Amon thought about it and separated the clone again. The clone carries the flame of destiny. Ah, you sure you want to do such a dangerous thing? The backlash of burning some rocks hurt me before. There was a smile on Amon's face. Anyway, it's you who gets the backlash. Just cut off the contact and avoid it before it implicates the main body, Avatar. Although there was a rather unhappy look on his face, he still did what Amon wanted. He stretched out his right hand and used the fire of destiny to burn the original sea heart flame that was parasitized by Amon. A trace of golden flame rose from the sea heart flame, and the blue and golden radiance reflected each other. As Amon guessed, Hazen Yan was ignited. The power of fate can even burn away strange fire. The blue light in the sea heart flame was gradually eroded by the gold, and it disappeared bit by bit. As the blue gradually disappeared, the expression on Amon's face became solemn. Finally, Hazeline trembled violently and disappeared completely. Amon's clone used the fire of destiny to burn Hazeline, but nothing happened. He glanced at the main body and said with a smile, "It went very well. Your guess is right." Amon put his hand on the clone's shoulder, gradually deepening the connection with him. A wave of enlightenment came from his body. Burning the stones had backlash, because Amon had no way to replace their fate, while burning Hazeline had no backlash, which means that Hazeline and Amon could completely replace the original Hazeline's influence on the world. Moreover, although the fate of the strange fire, that has not yet been born with complete intelligence, is large, it is not complicated. It can just burn. Unlike humans, they will make countless choices in their lives, and each of these choices will have an impact on them. Destiny has a great or small influence point, therefore, replacing a strange fire is much easier than replacing a human being. Unless, like Xiao Meng, he blends his own destiny with that of his host through a long period of parasitism. If he wants to directly replace someone, he will inevitably encounter strong backlash. Amon took back the clone, and at the same time, took back the flame of destiny that had grown stronger because of burning haze in iron. The growth of the fire of destiny relies on burning and influencing destiny as fuel. Spiritual objects of heaven and earth, such as strange fires that occupy a large amount of destiny but are not complicated, seem to be the best target. The spiritual insects that had parasitically controlled Han Feng's soul wrapped around his spiritual body and turned into a beam of light that penetrated Amon's body. Amon walked onto the back of the lightning turtle and rode it out of the cave and into the wilderness, staring high in the sky in the direction of the distant Cannon College. He whispered to himself, "Falling Heart Flame, it's your turn." In a secluded pavilion in the inner courtyard of Cannon College, Xiao Meng was sitting on a chair, with his left leg folded over his right leg, leaning back and leaning against the back of the chair. "Why are you back again?" She looked at the main body in front of her, seeming a little unhappy. With disgust in her eyes, Amon didn't mind her attitude, with a warm smile on his face. "Thanks to your fire of destiny, I successfully solved Han Feng and obtained the Sea Heart Flame. The next step is the Fallen Heart Flame." Xiao Meng raised her eyebrows and leaned forward slightly. "You don't want to just use the 3-color fire lotus to explode, do you? Don't care about the grand strategy? What should Xiao Yan do?" Cannon College is a very important node in his growth trajectory. The corners of Amon's mouth slowly raised. "The strategy is never static. Xiao Yan is just an option to guarantee the bottom line in the worst case. If the situation goes better than I originally expected, then he can also none. The mechanism of parasitic fire is very interesting, which makes me feel a lot more calm. Of course, it is necessary to maintain the guaranteed option. With my current ability, it is not impossible to give Xiao Yan a similar opportunity, but it is just very troublesome. I won't ruin Cannon Academy. It's better to use what's ready-made. Simplicity and efficiency are my principles. If you can save effort, why bother yourself? As for how to conquer the Fallen Heart Flame without causing too much damage, don't you have the answer?" Xiao Meng's face froze, her mouth twitched, and then returned to normal. She sighed softly. "How do you know?" Amon smiled but said nothing. Looking at his body that was looking at him warmly, Xiao Meng stretched out his right hand somewhat helplessly, with his palm flat, and in the palm of his hand, a silver flame burned quietly. "This flame seems to be close in front of you, but it seems to be far away in the horizon, giving people an elusive feeling. Space fire. The second kind of beast fire condensed by Xiao Meng." Amon stretched out his hand, took the flame from Xiao Meng's hand, and refined it. "Well, not bad. Using the essence and blood of Taixu Ancient Dragon as a guide, we can stimulate our hidden spatial characteristics and turn them into flames." Xiao Meng cried with a sad face. "You can take the fire of destiny, but leave this as a kindling for me. With its help, I can maximize my effectiveness." Amon chuckled, split the space fire into two, and left half for Xiao Meng. "Anyway, as long as you have fire, it won't be too difficult to cultivate it." Looking at the recovered space fire, Xiao Meng's face showed a hint of joy. Amon stood up from the chair and said softly, "Even if it is the 4-color Buddha's wrathful lotus, it may not pose too much of a threat to the 2 old guys Kai and Mu Bailey. It is not a wise choice to conflict with them. I will sneak into the bottom of the Xianfen refining tower and deal with the Fallen Heart Flame in the underground Magna world. In addition, other things I asked you to prepare ready." Xiao Meng hesitated for a moment and threw a jade slip to Amon. "You don't want to provoke that guy now, do you?" "No, it's too far away. Just make preparations early." Amon replied. "Tell me about the internal situation of the Xianfen refining tower." Xiao Meng answered fluently. "The Xianfen refining tower is divided into 11 floors. The upper 10 floors can be entered for cultivation with the help of the fire crystal card. The 11th floor, which is the bottom floor, is where the top 10 of the inner courtyard competition held every 5 years conduct the original heart fire body forging. Below the 11th floor is the seal center. Through the seal, you can look directly at the invisible fire python transformed by the fallen heart flame. After passing through this seal, you will reach the underground magma world, which is the location of the fallen heart flame. In the center of the Shinopsisin refining key tower is a hole that leads directly to the bottom floor. The training room for the heart fire body is built around this hole. The hole is surrounded by thick black iron. Each floor is guarded by the inner courtyard mentors to prevent students from approaching the central hole. Each floor of the Shinopsisin refining key tower is guarded by an elder with Daohuang strength, and the lowest floor is guarded by an elder with Daohuang strength. The tower body is made of a special material, which seems to help share some of the pressure borne by the seal. I sneaked into the seal center under the bottom floor, and saw that there are many loopholes in the seal. My strength is still a little lacking. I wanted to bug it, but I failed. If it were you, it shouldn't be a problem. In addition, you have to be careful of the ability of the fallen heart flame to create heart fire. Facing it, some spirit insects that are too weak can't even be cannon fodder, and at least have to be at the Daohuang level. It even burned a lot of weak spirit insects in my body through the seal. The spirit insect in the complete soul state probably has no effect. It has a strong damage to the soul body, so the cannon fodder Amon you use the soul devouring talent to improve it will not work. The intelligence work is done well. Amon showed a satisfied smile on his face after a pause. He continued, after getting all the strange fires that should be taken, I will probably leave the Jayamar Empire and go to the northern continent to take a look. The fusion ability of the barbarians makes me very excited, and you need to worry more about this. Oh, you are finally leaving the Jayamar Empire. Go away. Go away. Well, leave it to me with confidence for Master Xiao Yan. I will definitely not let you down, and let him grow well and quickly. Xiao Meng waved his hand, looking like he wanted Amon to disappear from his sight immediately. Looking at Xiao Meng, who was showing a cheerful expression, Amon chuckled and left her room through the window. Snap. The sound of the window closing came from behind. Amon smiled and walked towards the residence of Xiao Mingru not far away. After Amon left, Xiao Meng sat on the bed with a sneer on her face. Haha, how did the main body know that I have the fire of space? As she said, she stabbed her chest with her right hand fiercely and dug out a spirit worm roughly. She pinched the translucent worm with 12 rings and star-like colors with her index finger and thumb, pulled the corner of her mouth back, revealing a dangerous smile. Looking at Xiao Meng, whose face was still stained with her own blood, but she didn't care. With a cold light in her eyes, the spirit worm twisted its body and responded. The main body just rejected your spiritual connection, but he made a spiritual connection with me, so you sold me out. I'm just a worm. The spirit worm said helplessly. I'll strangle you to death. Xiao Meng pinched her fingers fiercely. Ah. Stop pinching. Stop pinching. It's going to break. It's going to break. The spirit worm screamed. Xiao Meng pinched it for a while and then let go. Before the spirit worm could breathe a sigh of relief, Xiao Meng brought it in front of her. She smiled sinisterly. I think we should keep our thoughts unified. Let's connect mentally. The spirit worm replied in a strange tone. Just now, we held a partial referendum in all of Mongolia. Xiao Meng's expression froze. How come I didn't know? The main body presided over it, and everyone voted. It was decided to deprive you of the right to participate in the referendum in all of Mongolia, and not allow you to have a deep mental connection with other spirit worms. Chapter 418 Invisible Fire Python. In the not so deep night, the moon was half hidden and half visible in the clouds, and the sky and the earth changed from light to dark. In a pavilion, a faint candle light illuminated the room. A young man with black hair, brown eyes, thin body, ordinary facial features, deep contours, and ordinary linen clothes sat on a chair, with a calm expression and a faint smile on his face. Opposite him, Amon, who was wearing a black robe, raised his right hand, stroked his monocle, and threw out a sea blue flame that flowed quietly like water. Find a way to give it to Xiao Yan. His growth rate can be appropriately accelerated. The rhythm of the original work is still too fast in the end. He reached out to take the flame that was slowly floating towards him, and with a roll of Dao Qi, he took it into his body. Zhao Mingru tightened the black gloves on his hands and said in a flat tone, "Just send it to him, right? Are there any requirements for the process?" Amon shook his head. "It doesn't matter. No." Zhao Mingru nodded slightly. The basin, where the inner courtyard of Canon College is located, is very vast, and the area of the inner courtyard is also very huge. There is a huge space and towering pavilions in a row, but there are only more than 1,000 students. Even if the instructors and elders in the college are added, the number is less than 2,000. Compared with this huge space, the number of people seems particularly scarce. Leaving Zhao Mingru's yard and walking all the way to the Xianfen refining key tower, Amon did not see a single person. It was not until he came to the entrance of the Xianfen refining key tower that he saw a student who had just finished practicing and walked out of it. This is a beautiful girl with a heroic black short hair and a hint of red hostility in her pupils. That is a symptom of being eroded by the fire poisoning the Xianfen refining key tower. Seeing Amon coming towards her, she showed a hint of doubt in her eyes. She has been in the inner courtyard for a long time and is considered an old student. There are not many people in the inner courtyard. If there is such a student with a peculiar dressing style, she thinks she should have an impression. Maybe it was a mentor or a new student who rarely appeared. Thinking of this, she didn't pay much attention and passed by Amon. Amon's mouth curled up slightly and his right hand made a grasping motion without leaving a trace. With a flip of his wrist, a fire crystal card appeared in his hand. He used the fighting skill Wu Xiang hand to steal the fire crystal card in the girl's ring just now. After showing the fire crystal card to the Dowling mentor guarding the tower, Amon walked into the tower. The mentor didn't care either. The fire crystal cards are divided into 5 types: black, blue, cyan, red, and purple, which can go to different levels respectively. The first level can be entered as long as you hold a fire crystal card. As for the special situation of outsiders sneaking in, he didn't think so much. Glancing at Amon, he felt that his clothes were a bit strange and then continued to stare at the sky in a daze. Standing guard is really boring. The slight sound of footsteps echoed in the empty corridor, and Amon's figure almost merged with the darkness. Without leaking a bit of breath, he walked straight to the inside of the empty corridor. Standing in front of the black iron wall, silver flames emerged from his body, and he stretched out his right hand, with light flowing on his 5 fingers as he grasped. The space in front of him began to fold and twist, and a layer of wrinkles made the thick black iron wall like thin paper. With a stroke of his 5 fingers, the thin space was torn apart, forming a passage for one person to pass through. The essence of the fighting skill Wu Xiang hand is the control of the power of space. On the Daoqi continent, Daozang strongmen began to dabble in the use of space power and could roughly control space. Like Amon, folding and tearing the space is the symbol of Daozang. Some high-level Daozangs may be able to do it, but they will never be as easy as Amon. Originally, in Amon's expectation, it would take a lot of work to get through the heavy guards and enter the bottom of the Xianfen refining key tower, but Xiao Meng's deep exploration of his own characteristics has added a lot of means to Amon. It made it much easier for him to do these things. This also made his idea of correcting Xiao Meng's thinking mode fail away. Given such a big surprise for him, Amon naturally didn't mind giving her more tolerance and freedom. He expected her to bring more surprises. After passing through the crack, the space behind him healed as before, and the thick wall did not change. Except that Amon came from one side of the wall to the other side. There was no difference. An inexplicable feeling of irritability suddenly emerged in Amon's heart. Layers of whispers sounded from his mind, dense and endless, sometimes low, sometimes high, evil and crazy. A magnificent, vast, and crazy will in the depths of consciousness trembled, as if to wake up, but soon fell into silence. Amon took a deep breath, rubbed his forehead, and suppressed the crazy thoughts that did not belong to him in his heart. Etsk a sound, his expression slightly solemn, the heart fire summoned by the fallen heart flame. I didn't expect it to trigger the will of the heavenly venerable and make it restless. After a little hesitation, he jumped and fell into the endless darkness a few hundred meters down. A layer of light silver light appeared in his vision, and the folds overlapped one after another, forming something like an upside down pot wrapped in tinfoil. It was a seal set by Mang Xianqi, the dean of Canon College. A layer of space barrier It was this barrier that trapped the fallen heart flame here for hundreds of years. Amon's descent slowed down. Silver light surged under his feet, and fine lines appeared on the space, like glass that was broken. After being impacted, Amon stepped on the solidified space. He still didn't have enough control over the space, otherwise it wouldn't be like glass about to break, but a smooth piece. Starlight appeared in his eyes, and his deep eyes seemed to contain all the contradictions, errors, and logical confusions in the world. Under such observation, he saw that at the origin of the folds of space, there were many small holes of different sizes, which were loopholes and flaws on the seal point. This is not the seal center, but the one between the bottom layer and the seal center, which is mainly used to prevent people with ulterior motives like Amon from entering the seal center. The seal center facing the falling heart flame is even deeper. Amon's figure flashed, revealing the appearance of the spirit worm, and turned into a translucent worm with 12 rings and star-like colors. The rings on his body began to float, and the whole worm seemed to be twisted and stretched, and layers of illusory doors emerged. These loopholes quickly gathered together to form a door for Amon's worm form to pass through. Amidst the twinkling stars, Amon had already reached the other side, but the tower elders at the bottom seemed to have sensed nothing. After passing through the seal, Amon came to the seal center facing the falling heart flame, the bottom of the Shianfan refining key tower. The spatial folds at the center were more dense, which also showed that the seal here was more powerful. However, there were more loopholes above, because the level of the person who arranged the seal did not change. It was just that little, and more power was forced to gather here, so the loopholes naturally gathered more. His sight passed through the spatial folds, and he saw a deep and dark passage behind him that was unknown how long. An invisible behemoth was crawling in this passage. Looking up through the seal, invisible fire python. The invisible fire python transformed by the falling heart flame. It seemed to be able to sense Amon on the other side of the seal, and the two looked at each other across the seal. In an instant, a stronger, more fierce and intense heart fire emerged in Amon's heart. The vast and eternal bloodthirsty will awakened, and then fell silent. In this alien world, the imprint of the heavenly venerable has always been like a rootless duckweed. Although its essence is high, it is weak in succession. Amon closed his eyes, suppressed the will of the heavenly venerable, and then slowly opened his eyes, revealing an interested look in his eyes. Interesting. He stretched out his right hand, and the silver flame burned on his palm. A layer of silver light lit up and soon spread to the whole arm, hand, without form, as if an invisible and formless palm was fiddling with it. Amon gathered the loopholes on the seal center and formed a crack for the spirit worm to pass through. Amon, composed of 4 spirit worms with 4 kinds of flames: space fire, destiny fire, blue lotus earth core fire, and sea heart flame, drilled through. This Amon came to the other end of the passage, and the first thing he faced was a stronger heart fire. However, he was prepared, and his body shook slightly and recovered. The invisible fire python let out a strong hiss, and the terrifying power was agitated, and a wave of sound echoed in the narrow passage. Amon, who came to the other side of the passage, spread a layer of golden flames on his body. The fire of destiny is very effective in burning such invisible and intangible things with a very short existence time. The sound waves were blocked by the shield formed by the fire of destiny. The fallen heart flame looked at the golden flame, and a bit of fear appeared in its eyes. With its high intelligence, it could sense the horror of this flame through the special induction between flames. Although it is not as strong as itself, its essence seems to be higher than itself, and ignorantly felt that refining the other party would bring great benefits to itself. After hesitating for a moment, it opened its mouth and pounced on this Amon. The huge mouth almost covered the entire passage. Amon raised his lips, revealing a smile. With a silver light flashing, he passed through the few remaining narrow gaps, spread his black and grey wings behind him, and rushed deeper into the ground. The invisible fire python transformed by the fallen heart flame also retreated quickly. A moment later, Amon came to the underground magna world. Without hesitation, he flapped his wings and was far away from the passage. In a few breaths, the fire python withdrew from the passage and coiled on the magma. Its huge snake pupils stared at Amon with fear and greed in its eyes. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. we cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 419, Conquering the Fallen Heart Flame. Amon stretched out his right hand, raised his thumb and index finger, and provocatively sent out a fighting ball wrapped in the Azure Lotus Earth Core fire point with a bang. The fighting ball exploded on the head of the fallen heart flame, and the Azure Lotus Earth Core fire emerged and extinguished point, feeling the breath of pure strange fire. The fallen heart flame became more excited point for it. The strange fire on the strange fire list is more tempting than Amon's weird fire point. Amon wrapped himself with the Azure Lotus Earth Core fire and plunged into the magma. The fallen heart flame hissed and followed closely point. It didn't worry about Amon cheating at all. In this magma world, it can draw firepower from the outside world at any time to supplement itself. It can be said that it is the most powerful time point. When an Amon led away the invisible fire python, the Amon body on the other side of the seal center once again threw a composite Amon composed of many spirit insects into the magma world point. He got in touch with Amon in the magma through a spiritual connection and followed him, and the invisible fire python slowly point, after going a certain distance into the magma and feeling that a battle would not have much impact on Canon College, Amon, who entered first, stopped and quietly waited for the arrival of the invisible fire python point. The latter opened his mouth without hesitation and swallowed Amon in one gulp point. The 4 spirit insects carrying 4 different flames launched aggregation, and they suddenly blended together to become a ball of flames of 4 colors. The invisible fire python, transformed by the fallen heart flame, felt something was wrong and wanted to spit it out, but it was too late point. The terrifying energy and extreme light and heat bloomed, and the surging and violent energy poured around like a torrent point. The invisible fire python was directly blown into sparks all over the sky and became part of this energy torrent point. The magma began to surge violently and huge waves rolled up on the surface. The entire Canon College could clearly feel it, and the underground shook point. Xiao Meng stood in front of the window, staring at the center of the inner courtyard of Canon College, and whispered to herself, "Has it started?" The wound on her chest where she had forcibly dug out the spirit worm had been repaired by gathering other spirit worms. A spirit worm crawled up to her shoulders. Xiao Meng pressed the middle finger of her left hand against the tip of her thumb and flicked it hard, sending it flying point. The spirit worm drew an arc in the air and fell to the floor. It twisted its body and then lay on the ground motionless. Sukan, who had already fallen asleep, suddenly got up from the bed and almost instinctively shouted in a slightly panicked voice, "All elders, go to the Xianfen refining key tower to gather all inner courtyard instructors, evacuate students and stay away from the Xianfen refining key tower." Although he hadn't figured out what was going on, he immediately ordered an emergency state. This time the shock was unprecedented. The voice spread throughout the inner courtyard with a powerful fighting spirit, and all the elders, instructors, and students moved point at the same time. Sukan shot towards the center of Canon Academy like a sharp arrow, and soon reached the sky above the Xianfen refining tower. At this time, the tower guards who withdrew from the Xianfen refining tower were already waiting outside the tower. Sukan looked at Elder Mu, who was on duty at the bottom today, and asked, "What's going on down there, Elder?" Mu shook his head in confusion. "Nothing. The fallen heart flame is very quiet, and there is no sign of impacting the seal." "What?" Sukan's eyebrows moved. "You wait here. I'll go down and take a look." He flew into the tower following the dark central hole down to the bottom. Sukan formed seals with his hands, and the seal slowly opened point. He continued to go down and checked the seal center that blocked the entrance to the flame channel, and found nothing wrong point. Staring at the layers of space wrinkles that were almost substantial, Sukan was puzzled point. Since the fallen heart flame did not riot, what exactly was the huge impact just now? What did the strange fire that already had spiritual intelligence want to do? Although he was uneasy about the movement underground, Sukan did not open the seal to check. If the falling heart flame had a chance to escape, it would be difficult to seal it back point. After a fruitless check, Sukan returned to the ground and said to the other elders, "Temporarily close the Xianfen refining key tower and observe for 7 days. After 7 days, open it again. If there is no problem, do your duty work during these 7 days. Keep an eye on the Shinfan refining key tower at all times, and report to me if there is any movement. Yes. The elders answered respectfully. Sudkian stood in the sky and stared at the Shinfan refining key tower for a long time before turning away worriedly. In the magma world, the breath of the falling heart flame suddenly waned after being exploded by the 4-color fire lotus. The surrounding flame layer had been blown away, leaving only an invisible flame burning quietly in the magma. The explosion just now did not harm the origin of the strange fire. As long as there is enough flame energy, it can recover quickly. In this huge magma world, the most abundant thing is fire energy. After the energy turbulence caused by the Buddha's wrathful lotus gradually subsided, and the energy of heaven and earth became controllable again, the fallen heart flame began to quickly absorb the surrounding energy. It doesn't take much time for it to recover and condense the invisible fire python again, but Amon will not give it this time. The second Amon, who came to the magma world by drilling a hole in the seal, appeared next to the fallen heart flame. He stretched out his hand and a silver flame flew out, spreading out to form a huge and dense fire net surrounding the invisible transparent flame. The fire net shrank rapidly and soon compressed the activity range of the fallen heart flame to a very small area. The fallen heart flame, which had no time to recover its strength, had no room to struggle, and was locked in the fire net formed by the space fire, and could not move. After subduing the fallen heart flame, this Amon sent a message to the Amon body, who was still waiting in the flame channel. After receiving the good news from the clone, the Amon body separated another clone, and asked him to carry out the subsequent processing work. The previous Amon had already brought the strange fire to the surface of the magma. After he joined the new Amon, he dug a cave on the surrounding rock wall for standing. The rock wall was soft in this high temperature environment, and it became hard after the surface was dug. In the dark cave, Amon, who was holding the strange fire, snapped his fingers, and a bright, golden flame illuminated the cave. He looked at the newly arrived Amon, thrust the strange fire in his hand forward, and said with a chuckle, "Next. Let's work together to deal with this guy together." The new Amon stroked his monocle and said with a smile, "I don't think it will be difficult." Starlight shone on his body, and a beam of light rushed towards the fallen heart flame. This was a spirit worm that had been upgraded to the highest level, and it was not in a soul state, but had a physical body. Amon initiated parasitism on the fallen heart flame. During the parasitism process, the form of the spirit worm changed. Parasitic fire was different from parasitizing other creatures. The spirit worm would automatically transform into a similar form. And in this process, his soul was exposed to the burning of the fallen heart flame. The result was that the Amon who was parasitized and integrated into it was incomplete. Amon didn't care, and another spirit worm shot over, repeating this behavior until Amon's will overwhelmed the original will of the fallen heart flame and successfully gained dominance. It's done. Then, he parasitized and separated as he had done before, creating a fallen heart flame Amon. Chapter 420 Flame Lizard Meng. A spirit worm merged into the fallen heart flame Amon, and his aura grew rapidly. After taking a look at the other two Amons and the controlled fallen heart flame, his body split into two. One flew towards the main body, and the other stayed where it was, and began to devour the original fallen heart flame. He would stay in this seal, replacing the original fallen heart flame, waiting for Xiao Yan to absorb it. The other two Amons merged into one. Walked to the entrance of the cave they dug, and stared at the endless magma below. The main purpose was achieved, but since they had come to this magma world, how could they not explore it? A blue flame emerged from the body of this Amon, isolating the influence of the magma, and he continued to go deeper. The Azure Lotus Earth Core Fire was originally a flame born in the magma, and it has the power to trigger a volcanic eruption. In such an environment, it can be said to be like a fish in water. Amon sensed a disturbance in the magma, and the corners of his mouth slightly raised, revealing a smile. He had been prepared for the flame lizardman, and with the green lotus earth core fire spirit worm's keen perception of magma, he would naturally not be attacked by surprise like Xiao Yan. A red flame lizardman sensed Amon, the outsider, and was about to sneak up and attack from behind, but found that the other party suddenly disappeared from his perception. A trace of confusion flashed in his pupils full of cruelty and tyranny. He wandered around in confusion for a while, and when he was about to leave, he was suddenly patted on the back by someone. He turned around and saw the human behind him, looking at him with a smile. It subconsciously wanted to attack, but found that it suddenly couldn't move. The brilliant starlight lit up, and when the light disappeared, there was a circle of white circles on its right eye. Half of the spirit worm in Amon's body separated and merged into the body of this flame lizardman. In order to deal with the fallen heart flame that made Sukan and a group of inner courtyard elders embarrassed in the original work, Amon separated a large number of clones, so they could not stay all. Amon began to return. And the flame lizardman with a white circle on his right eye, carrying half of the spirit insect, swam deeper into the magma to find his own kind. Amon's clone, who had completed the task, came to the place where the flame channel connected to the seal center, looked at the main body and said, "It's done. Thank you for your hard work." Amon's main body had a faint smile on his face. The figures of the two Amons became illusory, and they overlapped, and became one Amon. He stretched out his right hand, and the 5 kinds of flames, gold, silver, cyan, sea blue, and colorless, danced between his 5 fingers. Looking at the harvest of this trip, Amon showed a satisfied smile on his face and whispered softly, "Well, this should be enough. We can protect ourselves in the northern continent. But to be on the safe side, I will get another bone spirit cold fire." In the deep magma world, everything in sight was red, as if there was no life. Amon, with a white circle on his right eye, cruised for a long time before finally sensing the abnormal disturbance in the magma. He approached there without hesitation, and found that 2 fire lizardmen were fighting. Their claws and fangs embedded in each other's bodies, constantly scratching deep wounds on the opponent's body. That posture did not seem to be an ordinary battle, but a fight of life and death. Brutalism and cruelty seemed to have been engraved into the bones of the fire lizardmen. Sometimes they would attack each other and take out the fire beads in each other's bodies for food. The fire beads in the body of the fire lizardman are similar to the magic core of the Warcraft, which is a crystallization of fire attribute energy. It's just that the fire power inside is too violent and cannot be absorbed by the human body. Otherwise, it would be a rare treasure for every practitioner who practices fire attributed exercises. The battle was won and lost. The winner tore the loser's neck, took out the fire beads from the other's body, and swallowed them. The fire energy that is too violent for humans is nothing for creatures like fire lizardmen who live in magma environments. The fire beads of the same kind are their best supplements. After hunting a fellow, the fire lizardman seemed to have nothing happened. After circling for a circle, it swam in a certain direction and finally merged into a group of fire lizardmen. In such a group, fighting seems to be not allowed. Even if the fire lizardmen are very irritable, they are quiet and there is no disturbance. Amon's perception range is much wider than that of ordinary fire lizardmen. He followed the winner of the fire lizardmen all the way here without being noticed. He followed closely and mixed into the group. The strength of the fire lizardmen at this depth is generally not strong. Most of them are at the level of great Daoshi, and occasionally there are 1 or 2 larger Dowling level. In the center of the group, there is a larger and darker one. Judging from the breath, it has reached the level of Daowang. But none of them pose any danger to Amon. Then, Amon began to spread. One after another. The fire lizardmen had white circles on their right eye sockets after most of the spirit insects left their bodies. The first white-eyed lizardman began its adventure again, and dived deeper. It went down all the way, avoiding those Daowang and Daohuang level lizardmen, and came to a depth that a fire lizardman of its strength should not come to. The surrounding aura became deep and terrifying. Through relay transmission, it was able to contact the white-eyed lizardman in the shallow layer of the magma. Through spiritual communication, he realized that he had been diving for 3 whole days. 2 milky white lizardmen, who looked much older than other lizardmen, found this little guy who was suspected to be too curious and ignored it. It's almost reaching the cemetery of the gods. Let it go, just in time to see what the Gravikeeper is like now. He has always refused to communicate with us. When mentioning the Gravikeeper, the milky white lizardman with a deep and terrifying aura also showed a bit of fear on his face. I don't know how deep it went down again, and Amon was a little numb. Tsk, even if it borrowed the identity of the fire lizardman and would not cause too much hostility and everything went well, it seemed difficult to reach the cave of Tuoshkudi. Amon thought in his heart. But he was not a person who gave up so easily. He had decided before that this spirit insect would keep diving until a dive point continuing forward. He found that the space around him seemed to have changed. After passing through a space dislocation, the magma suddenly disappeared. He came to a huge and empty world. Chapter 421. I hope you won't kneel down and beg me for a while. The flame lizardmen cannot escape from the magma. They are not normal creatures, but are specially transformed by Tuo's ancient emperor to guard his cave. The more powerful the flame lizardmen are, the deeper the magma is. That is, near the ancient emperor's cave. And there is no magma in the huge space before the ancient emperor's cave. Therefore, after entering, a swelling pain from the inside to the outside spread throughout the body. In an instant, this flame lizardman with white eye circles exploded and died. The spirit worm parasitic in its body was also affected. After all, the two are in a fusion state, and the death of the host will also be fed back to him to a certain extent. A faint light bloomed, accompanied by a layer of grey color, and the spirit worm began to deform. A figure was outlined, and the lines changed from simple to complex and three-dimensional. The virtual figure gradually solidified, and the stiff expression gradually became agile, and the spirit worm turned into a human form. Exquisite facial features, charming smile, curvy figure. It turned into not Amon, but Amang. She groaned, and a trace of blood flowed from the corner of her mouth. TSK. I forgot this characteristic of the fire lizardman, but the impact is not serious. Well, I have to pay more attention to some details in the future. Amon reflected in his heart. He began to look at this space. In the darkness and silence, a sense of antiquity and history came to him. In the distance, a group of light appeared faintly. Amon stared at the light, and a pair of silver wings appeared behind him. He flapped his wings and rushed towards the light under the drive of a trace of space power in the light. There was an ancient stone gate, which was a huge one. It stood in the vast void, exuding an ancient and vast breath, and a faint pressure was permeated. Although it did not seem blazing, it was unusually heavy. In front of the stone gate was an equally huge square. Standing in the square and looking up at the stone gate, one feels extremely small. On the top of the stone gate, there are 4 ancient characters carved. Ancient Emperor Cave Mansion, Amon. Walked to the stone gate. His eyes were full of stars, and his insightful characteristics were not obvious, but it gave Amon extraordinary observation. With the innate skill of breaking the seal, Amon began to analyze the seal of Tuo's ancient emperor. He was looking for loopholes in the seal of Tuo's ancient emperor, looking for a possibility to drill through without a key, and relying on a bug. Well, I remember that the void devouring flame and the pure lotus demon fire escaped from here. If this loophole can be magnified, then the possibility of success is very high. Amon muttered to himself in his heart. He could vaguely feel that the seal was not perfect. There were many weak links, and there were more subtle and easier to break through points. But even the weakest link, which can be called a loophole, is not something he can break through now. Under normal circumstances, the seal laid by Dowdy can only be broken by Dowdy. If many weak points can be found, Dao Shen can also try to break some of them. And I found a loophole, and I can use the loophole to get past the bug without breaking the seal, and the requirements can be lower. Daozun. After reaching the Daozun level, I will probably be able to try to enter the ancient emperor's cave. Amon analyzed in his heart. Just as Amon was observing the door, a chill rose from behind him, as if something terrifying had awakened. Amon smiled lightly, turned around slowly, and stared at the void below. He snapped his fingers, and a golden flame bloomed, illuminating the dark void below. A huge and indescribable terrifying creature was entrenched in the darkness, and the sight moved to the distance, until the end of the light. It was still impossible to see its full appearance. Purple gold scales covered its body, giving people a vigorous feeling like steel. He watched the snake-like creature slowly move its body, without any movement, as if it was scared silly. A pair of eyes like the sun opened, and the brilliance in the eyes even overshadowed Amon's fire. It rose from the space below, and its head poked in front of Amon. Looking down at him from top to bottom. A majestic and heavy voice, like thunder, rang out, shaking the space. Intruder, do you have ancient jade? No, no. Amon said with fear in his eyes, stammering. The huge eyes were filled with murderous intent. If not, then stay. Amon's eyes widened, His face was horrified, and his mouth opened and closed for a while, but he couldn't make any sound. A giant claw was raised high, wanting to pat it down. At the same time, the pressure like the abyss and the sea was released without reservation. Under this pressure, this Amon exploded directly, just like the fire lizard man who died after leaving the magma explosion. The power of the fighting saint is so terrifying. This huge creature, Takesu ancient dragon emperor Zhu Kun, was stunned. He thought that the breath of Amon Dalwang was the result of some advanced breath concealment method. He didn't expect that the other party would explode before his attack was launched. Really just a Dalwang? How did you get through the fire lizardman outside and come here? He suddenly found that in the pile of flesh and blood, a jade slip was shining. Zhu Kun, who had been bored for too long in this dead space, suddenly became a little interested. The power of the soul probed out and browsed the contents of the jade slip. In a vast forest, the roars of monsters came one after another. A little girl in white clothes with purple pupils was running rapidly in the forest. Zhu Kun's eyes fluctuated violently. This jade slip was quite advanced. It recorded not only the picture, but also the sound and breath. He clearly felt the breath of his child from this little girl. That was his child. The picture moved back, and a 6th level magic wolf opened its bloody mouth and followed the girl in white. The sharp fangs flashed with cold light. There was tyranny and cruelty in the eyes. Obviously, this magic wolf was not the girl's subordinate or anything. It was the girl's enemy. Looking at this picture, Zhu Kun's anger rose in his heart. His child was actually bullied by a small 6th level magic beast. In addition to anger, he couldn't help but feel a little worried. His child was obviously born not long ago, only at the 5th level, and he didn't know the various secrets of the Takesu ancient dragon clan, nor did he fully master his own abilities. With only physical strength, he was no match for the 6th level monster. The girl in white suddenly turned her head and looked over here. For a moment, Zhu Kun thought she was looking at him. But he quickly realized that the other party was looking at the person who recorded this message. Although it was a child's face, Zhu Kun found some common features between his eyebrows. He muttered to himself, really like, the child's mother. The picture stopped abruptly. That's it. What about the follow-up? Show me the follow-up. Zhu Kun was anxious. Chapter 422 Xiao Meng is a sharp blade. After a while, the image reappeared. The girl in white appeared again, but this time her clothes were not clean and were covered with dirt. Her little face was dirty and had some bruises, as if she had been beaten by someone. Yan, are you okay? A clear and pleasant female voice sounded. It seemed to be the person who recorded the image. It's okay. The girl in white wiped her cheek with the back of her hand. The already dirty cheek became even dirtier. Putchy. A chuckle sounded. The more you wipe, the dirtier you become, like a little cat. A pair of white arms appeared, and the thumb of the right hand gently wiped the ring on the index finger, and a white towel and a kettle appeared in her hand. She poured water from the kettle to wet the towel, and then began to wipe the girl's face. From the gentle movements, it can be seen that she wiped very gently. But even so, when she touched some bruises, the girl in white would still gasp in pain, and her hair would make a hissing sound. Zhu Kun's heart also twitched with the girl's gasping sound. Sorry, I hurt you. Next time I'll go get some medicine for healing external injuries. This time I was careless and didn't prepare. The girl's voice sounded. It doesn't hurt. Sister Xiao Meng, you don't have to exchange those expensive and unnutritious things for me. It's better to keep those medicinal materials as my rations. Hey, although I got beaten, the big guy's not much better. I hit him hard a few times. The girl in white shook her little fist. After a pause, she asked again, by the way, Sister Xiao Meng, did you succeed? Of course, otherwise how can I be worthy of your efforts? The white arm took out a dry branch. Hey, I know you are reliable, Sister Xiao Meng. The girl in white smiled. But in Zhu Kun's opinion, this smile gave people a bitter feeling. He didn't know what kind of medicinal material this branch was, but the preliminary judgment was that it would not exceed the 6th level. He was angry, distressed and sad. His child, the daughter of the ancient Takesu Dragon King, had fallen to the point of digging for food in the soil. She fought with the monster for a mere 6th grade medicinal herb, and was slightly injured, as Agreed, half for each of us. The girl in white bit off the dry branch in the middle and returned half to the owner of the white arm. You worked harder this time and did the most dangerous thing, so you should get more. The white arm disappeared from the screen. When it reappeared, there was only a quarter of the branch left in its hand, which it handed to the girl in white. Looking at the quarter of the medicinal material, the girl in white showed desire in her eyes, but she restrained herself and shook her head and said, Sister Xiao Meng, it's not easy for you to deal with the 5th level monster. Let's do as we agreed at the beginning. A quarter of it is enough for me. You should eat more, grow up quickly, and get rid of the side effects of eating the shape-changing grass as soon as possible. Only in this way can you switch freely between your body and human form. Only when you know your body can you find your parents. The white arm stuffed the quarter of the medicinal material into the girl's hand without any explanation. The girl in white stared at the medicinal material in her hand blankly, her eyes red, and said woodenly, I have no father or mother. Seeing her like this, Zhu Kun's heart was clenched, and he roared deafeningly, to ancient emperor, you bastard, child, my child, I'm sorry for you. I shouldn't have coveted the Dao Emperor's ruins back then. The terrifying sound waves echoed in this dead space, and there were cracks in the space. The white arm touched the head of the girl in white, and comforted softly, maybe they have some unavoidable difficulties. The girl in white's eyes lit up, and she was obviously looking forward to this possibility. She hoped that she was not abandoned by her parents, and she hoped that her parents loved her, but she still curled her lips and said very stubbornly, Humph, I don't care. Anyway, even if you appear again, I won't recognize you. Seeing her performance like this, Zhu Kun's dragon eyes like a little sun were already full of tears. By the way, Sister Xiao Meng, what do you do with a jade slip all day long? It's recording your growth. When you find your parents one day in the future, I think they should also want to know how you lived before. There was a smile in the clear female voice. They won't care. The girl in white had a hint of resentment in her voice. If the elder hadn't found me, I would have died in the mouth of monster. Anyway, just record it first. Don't worry, I will do my best to help you find your parents. What? If you can't find them? If you can't find them, you still have me and the elder. The girl in white took a bite of the dry branch, her cheeks bulging, and she muttered, it's so bitter. Oh, I almost forgot. I have beast fire. I learned a few tricks from the guys in the alchemy department some time ago. I can help you extract the impurities in the medicinal materials, and they will taste much better. Really. Golden flames appeared on her white palms, and she burned the dry branches. As the flames burned, traces of impurities were burned away, leaving only energy essences like sugar beans. Here, try it. The girl in white put a candy bean into her mouth. A smile appeared in the corner of her eyes. It's delicious, she said with a hint of expectation. Sister Xiao Meng, can I ask you to take care of my medicinal herbs in the future? Of course. The beautiful female voice agreed very happily. A bright smile appeared on the face of the girl in white. Seeing the smile on the face of the girl in white, Zhu Kun also smiled. While he was excited, he suddenly thought of a serious question. How could the man just now have this jade slip? Thinking of the golden beast fire used by the white arm to refine the medicinal materials for the girl in white, and the golden flame used by the intruder just now to illuminate the void, he had an ominous premonition in his heart. At this time, the girl in white said, then Xiao Meng, you should also record yourself. Xiao Meng should also be into Yan's growth. The picture in the jade slip flowed, and the little girl in white and the girl in black appeared together. Seeing that delicate face with a bit of enchantment, Zhu Kun felt that the sky had fallen. He turned his head mechanically, looking at the scattered flesh and blood left by the tomb invader who died in his hands in the square like a stone statue, and his huge body trembled constantly. Is it too late for me to kneel down and beg you not to die? It's over. It's over now. Not only did I fail to take good care of the child, but it seems that I also killed her few friends who were like family members, let alone recognize each other. It's good enough that we don't become mortal enemies. Zhu Kun was at a loss. This 9-star Dao Sheng Peak, the Warcraft overlord standing at the top of the Daoqi continent, felt that his heart was stabbed hard. Xiao Meng couldn't have found this place because she was looking for the parents of my child and found some clues. She risked her life and worked hard to facilitate the meeting between me and my child, but she was killed by me. Zhu Kun felt that he would probably spend countless days and nights in endless regret in the flame channel. Amon's body was waiting quietly. He learned from the spirit insects left outside that Cannon Academy would seal the tower for 7 days. During these 7 days, the Xianfen refining key tower was guarded very strictly, and someone was watching the seal 24 hours a day. So he didn't leave in a hurry and planned to wait until the Xianfen refining key tower was reopened and the guards became lax. Before leaving. The clone killed by Zhu Kun passed a message at the last moment, which flowed into the mind of the original body through relay transmission. Amon stroked his monocle, and the corners of his mouth curled up slightly, outlining a smile. He whispered to himself, Xiao Meng is a sharp blade, stabbing people's hearts. I wonder who will be the next victim. His eyes moved to the direction of the Jia Empire, and the smile on Amon's face was full of interest. In the imperial capital of the Jia Empire, Xiao Yan, who had just won and became the champion of the alchemist conference, was in high spirits. The handsome boy looked in the direction of the Yunlan sect with a smile on his lips. Ah, you ready? Nalan Yanran, original body, are you there? Zhao Mingru's voice sounded in Amon's mind. What's wrong? Is there something wrong? Didn't you leave a sea heart flame here with me? Is it really okay to use any method as long as it is delivered to Xiao Yan? Zhao Mingru's tone seemed to be a little helpless. Don't be too obvious, and don't make the reason too outrageous. Amon asked in confusion. What happened? It was Xiao Meng. She found out that I had a strange fire, so she pestered me for the sea heart flame and said she would personally give it to Master Xiao Yan. Amon's expression froze, and the smile on his face gradually solidified. Chapter 423, Changes in the Xiao clan. In the Jia Empire, Xiao Yan used the fake identity of Yan Xiao to defeat the conspiracy of Yan Li, the vice president of the Alchemist Union of the Izumo Empire, and refined the 3-marked Kingling pill at the Alchemist Conference. For a time, he was in the limelight. I don't know how many proud daughters of heaven fell in love with him. Even the 2 princesses Yaoai and Yaoai of the Jia Empire royal family felt their hearts move. And Nalan Yanran, who once went to the Xiao family to break off the engagement and could almost be called the #1 young person in the Jia Empire, also felt convinced by a peer for the first time. After all, Yan Xiao is a 4th grade alchemist, but even a strong fighting spirit must treat him with respect. Regardless of her identity. As the young master of the Yunlan sect, she, a great fighting master, was nothing in front of a 4th level alchemist. What made Nalan Yanran feel aggrieved and puzzled was that this young talent, whom she showed her affection for the first time, was unpretentious and even slightly disgusted with her. But this disgust seemed to be suppressed by another strange emotion. She felt that sometimes Yan Xiao seemed to look at her with the eyes of an elder looking at a younger generation. All in all, it's just weird. Because there was no battle with the people of Shanxi Mansion, and the integration of spirit insects, Yao Chen's soul state was much better than that of the original work at the same time. However, because Yanxi was suspected of being Yan, Xiao Yan's dislike for Nalan Yanran was not that serious. And he wanted Yao Chen to recover better, so he still chose to help Nalan detoxify. I cannot thank you enough for your kindness. I know that little Yanxio is here for this 7 fantasy green spirit saliva, but my life is much more precious than this. I, Nalan Ji, will definitely repay you if I have the opportunity in the future. Thank you. Nalan Ji said to Xiao Yan very seriously. Xiao Yan, wearing the mask of Yan Xiao, smiled non-committally, looked at Nalan Ji, and said nothing. Nalan Ji was also quite sensible, so he immediately clapped his hands and ordered someone to take out the 7 fantasy green spirit saliva that he spent half his life picking. Xiao Yan's eyes rested on the plant that looked like it was carved from sapphire, with 7 colored flowers growing on the top, and a trace of joy appeared in his eyes with this thing. The teacher's soul, which is on the verge of exhaustion, can recover a lot. After taking the medicinal materials, Zhao Yan immediately said to Melon G, Mr. Melon, I have something else to do, so I will leave first. His eagerness made Melon G, who originally wanted to retain his granddaughter and have more interactions with him, stunned. Then he smiled again. Then I won't waste my time, little friend. If you need help in the future, just come to me. After returning to the hotel, Zhao Yan contacted Yao Chen anxiously. Teacher, try it quickly and see if this thing is useful to you. Yao Chen's soul body floated out, with a pleased smile on his face. Yes, it does work. In fact, although the 7 fantasy green spirit saliva is a rare item that can restore the soul, it has little effect on the further recovery of Yao Chen. The effect of this thing was to wake him up when his soul was almost completely exhausted. But for Yao Chen, what matters is not whether it has any effect. Zhao Yan's thoughts are much more meaningful than that. He no longer wanted to taste the pain of betrayal by a disciple who treated him as his own son. Yao Chen had a faint smile on his face. This time, he seemed to have seen the right person. But when he thought about the hidden dangers in his soul, his eyes couldn't help but feel a little sad. Unfortunately, he failed to meet Zhao Yan when he was in his prime and failed to give him better things. Instead, it brought him some hidden dangers. Only when he thought about Zhao Yan's safety would he remember that there was a strange parasitic creature in his soul. Most of the time, Yao Chen would subconsciously ignore it. He refined the Kihuan Kingling saliva into a medicinal liquid and preserved it using special techniques in case of emergency needs. After hesitating for a long time, he said to Zhao Yan, Zhao Yanzi, teacher? Zhao Yan noticed the heaviness in Yao Chen's tone, and his expression became solemn. You should still remember the weird creatures I once told you, right? Yao Chen said in a heavy tone. Yeah. Zhao Yan nodded. Yao Chen slowly spoke. I feel like I have been eroded by them. You can no longer trust me unreservedly in the future. If one day you feel that I'm no longer me, then throw away this bone inflammation ring and draw a clear line with me. Hearing Yao Chen's words, which seemed to be about the funeral arrangements, Zhao Yan couldn't help shouting, Teacher, if there is a way, there must be a way. Teacher, you are like a gift to me. Without your training, teacher, Zhao Yan would not be where he is today. No matter what the situation, the disciple will never leave the teacher alone. Yao Chen looked a little moved, and he sighed. Oh, it's a pity that we met a little late. Zhao Yan smiled. It's not too late at all. Otherwise, how can the teacher see my character clearly, and how can I trust you so much? A friend in need is a friend indeed. Yao Chen smiled bitterly. I will try my best to maintain my consciousness. Remember that I'm Yao Chen, your teacher. Zhao Yan thought about Wutan City again, and the Zhao family. He was worried that such strange creatures might affect more than just his teacher, and he couldn't help but feel a little worried in his heart. But soon he laughed at himself. Even a strong person like the teacher couldn't do anything. So what's the use of worrying about it? Wutan City, Zhao family. Zhao Zhen feels that the atmosphere in his family is strange recently, and it is different from before. It seems more harmonious. Yes, it is harmonious. So harmonious that he wonders what is wrong. Especially several elders, who used to come out every day to accuse him of doing something wrong, but recently they have been unusually quiet. With such doubts, he paid more attention to the tribe and observed the situation of several elders intentionally. He found that several elders had a crystal monocle on their right eyes, and they all liked to pinch the monocle with their right hands. Later, he found that the tribe members had a crystal monocle on their right eyes, and they all liked to pinch the monocle with their right hands. Not 1 or 2, not 3 or 5, but all. Such a strange situation made Zhao Zhen a little frightened, and he huddled in his room in fear and sweat. Zhao family, what happened? Past memories emerged, and a great fear surged in his heart. He suddenly realized that it seemed that more and more people in Wutan City loved to wear monocles. Master Gu and I of Mitre Auction House, Miss Yafei, and Jia of the Jia Lai family, and their expressions when pinching glasses were very similar. They would slightly curl up the corners of their mouths and outline the same smile. The sound of footsteps rang out, and it was the tribesman who gathered outside Zyrozan's house. Zyrozan opened his eyes wide, looking outside the house uncertainly, his face struggling. The tribe leader hid. Yes, he hid. We were discovered. Well, we were discovered. Who didn't hide well and revealed a flaw. It's you. It must be you. No, it's definitely you. Tribe leader, are you there? Are you there? I'm coming in. We're coming in. A strange tone of discussion rang out, accompanied by the sound of creaking wood friction, and the door was slowly opened. Chapter 424. Events from 1000 years ago. A man in a black robe and a wide hood that almost covered his face walked in. Zyrozan sat on a chair, with a small table on his left, and an empty chair on the other side of the table. He had a calm face, and stretched out his hand to the black-robed man who walked in, making a gesture of invitation. The black-robed man walked to the empty chair, and sat down naturally. He laughed, as expected of the Zyro clan leader. This calmness does not disgrace this identity. Zyrozan picked up the teapot on the small table, poured 2 cups of tea, and gently pushed one to the side of the mysterious black-robed man. The slight trembling in his hands showed that his heart was not as calm as he appeared. Who are you, or you, anyway? Why did you attack my Zyro family? What did you do to my people? Zyrozan said in a low voice. Don't worry about this. Let me tell you a story about Zhangzhou and some ancient forces. The black-robed man said in a slightly old voice. When a person breaks through to Douluo, his blood will change under the influence of the rules of heaven and earth. It becomes different from ordinary people and more special and magical. About 1000 years ago, there were 8 families with Douluo blood standing in Zhangzhou. There were many masters and their families, and there were more than 2 Daoshengs. Zyrozan was stunned. He was frightened by such a terrifying force, but also felt that it was too far away and unreal. The time was more than 1000 years ago. The place was Zhangzhou, and it was the force that dominated the entire Daoqi continent. For Zyrozan, it was really just a story. The black-robed man ignored Zyrozan's thoughts and told his own story. These 8 races have continued from ancient times to today and are called the 8 ancient races. They are the Soul race, the Ancient race, the Flame race, the Thunder race, the Medicine race, the Spirit race, the Stone race, and the Zyro race. When Zyrozan heard the last word Zyro clan, his heart jumped. Zyro clan, wait, when he just came in, he seemed to call me the Zyro clan leader, not the Zyro family leader. More than 1000 years ago, the Zyro clan and the Soul clan were the strongest among the 8 ancient clans. The relationship between the 2 clans was also very bad, with old grudges and often launched wars. At that time, there were 5 strongest people under the Dao Emperor, and the existence of the peak of the 9-star Dao Sheng dominated the world. They were Zyrozan of the Zyro clan, Hunshai of the Soul clan, Gu Yuan of the Ancient clan, Patriarch Danta, and Patriarch Fenian. Zyrozan just listened to it as a story at first, but at this time, his brows moved, and he suddenly remembered something. Gu Yuan, he had heard of this name, isn't the father of Zuna Gu Yuan. He still remembered the scene, when the middle-aged man came to their family with Zuna in her arms, and told him that he wanted to entrust Zuna to the Zyro family, so that she could spend a childhood without troubles here. Could this Gu Yuan be the same Gu Yuan? According to this mysterious man, Gu Yuan was a figure from more than 1000 years ago. How could it be? Although Zyrozan knew that as his cultivation improved, his lifespan would gradually increase, but 1000 years, that was too long, right? The middle-aged man with a smile that made people feel like spring breeze was actually an old monster who had lived for more than 1000 years. I used to call him a brother. Zyrozan took a sip of tea and tried to suppress the shock in his heart, but he choked and coughed for a long time. At that time, the Zyro clan was at its peak, but there was a crisis hidden in it. The blood power of the Dao Emperor will gradually dry up with the passage of time, and each generation will be weaker than the previous one. Although there are ways to delay it, it cannot be stopped. Zyrozan, the patriarch of the Zyro clan, noticed this crisis, but had no solution. He was worried about this. In the long run, the strength of the Zio clan would gradually decline, and it would be unable to fight against the Soul clan, the enemy that was eyeing them covetously. In such a predicament, the patriarch decided to take a risk and try. He was ready to gather the blood power of the entire clan to impact that legendary realm. Speaking of this, the black-robed man's tone became a little excited and a little fanatical. Ziozen noticed the words used by the black-robed man. Clan leader. This black-robed man called Ziozuan, who lived more than 1,000 years ago. The clan leader. Could he also be a member of the Zio clan, or a person from Ziozuan's era more than 1,000 years ago? Ziozen looked at the black-robed man with a little horror in his eyes. If this person really lived from that era to the present, what would his cultivation level be? Daozun, or Daosheng. Hearing this, Ziozen also had a vague guess. As the head of a clan, he was certainly not a fool. He was less worried about his clan members, but he didn't relax completely. Ziozuan gathered the remaining source energy in the heavenly tomb through a secret method, and took half a step forward, almost succeeding. Unfortunately, at this time, the Soul clan attacked, causing him to fail in the end, and most of the Zio clan's forces, including the clan leader, died in that battle. Gu Yuan, the clan leader of the ancient clan, was Ziozuan's best friend. Before Ziozuan attacked the Dao Emperor, he had anticipated this possibility, so he asked Gu Yuan to take care of the remaining Zio clan members. After that battle, the Soul clan was also seriously injured and retreated to the Soul realm to lick their wounds silently. They did not dare to make too big a move to prevent being taken advantage of by other races, taking advantage of the Soul clan's weakness and having no time to take care of other things. Under the cover of the ancient clan, the remaining Zio clan members left Zhangzhou and came to the northwest of the continent. Over the past 1,000 years, due to the depletion of blood and the incompetence and lack of ambition of the descendants, the Zio clan has been declining from generation to generation and eventually evolved into the current. The black-robed man raised his head, revealing the old face under the hood, but his eyes were not cloudy, but bright. He stared at Ziozen and slowly uttered two words, Zio family. Although Ziozen had a premonition when the black-robed man was talking, he still felt extremely incredible when it was confirmed. Shocked, confused, and a little panic and guilt. If this is true, then he, a little big fighting master, is also one of the unworthy descendants who is ashamed of his ancestors. After a long while, Ziozen came back to his senses from the extreme shock. He took a deep breath, calmed down the shock in his heart, and said with a tremor, "This Zio family, is it the Zio family of Wutan City?" "Yes, the Zio family of Wutan City." The black-robed man nodded slowly. Ziozen let out a long breath, smiled bitterly and shook his head. He never thought that the Zio family would have such a glorious time, and was one of the dowdy families that had been passed down from ancient times to the present day. He looked at the mysterious black-robed man who seemed to have little ill will towards him and the Zio family, and asked with some respect, "May I ask your name, senior? What is your relationship with my Zio family?" The black-robed man glanced at him and said lightly, "You should call yourself a member of the Zio clan. As for my name, Zio clan, Zio Yuanshan." Chapter 425. The Amon clan is the Zio clan-039 S staunch ally. Ziozen's eyes moved slightly, and he said in a deep voice, "You are our Zio family's ancestor." The black-robed man who called himself Zio Yuanshan nodded slightly. "I didn't participate in that battle. The clan leader arranged for me to do something else. I'm a backup left by the clan leader. My mission is to ensure that the bloodline of the Zio clan is not cut off, whether prosperous or desolate. As long as the Zio clan continues to exist, it's fine. I won't interfere too much with the rest. At most, I will prepare some small adventures for some of the clan members who go out to see if there can be one or two peerless geniuses like Ziozuan who can lead the Zio clan to glory again. Unfortunately, there are too few such people. I haven't met any in so many years. If it's just an ordinary genius, then the Zio clan might as well continue to stay in this corner. At least it's safe here. After all, the Soul clan, the former enemy of the Zio clan, is still strong." Ziozen asked with some doubt. "Then my people," the black-robed man corrected. "It's our people." After A slight pause. He said, I said before that 1,000 years ago, our Zyro clan had a great enemy, the Soul clan. They have been recuperating for so long and have become active again. Their tentacles are all over the Daoki continent and their shadows are everywhere. Even this remote Jama Empire is no longer safe. Recently, I discovered some movements of the Soul Palace, a subordinate organization of their Soul clan. They seem to want to attack the Zyro family. I guess they may not be sure that the Zyro family is the Zyro clan, but their style has always been to rather kill the wrong person than let him go. What? Zyrozen looked panicked. As the patriarch, he knew exactly what level the Zyro family, or the current Zyro clan, was. A great Tao master himself was the strongest fighting force. If that behemoth really wanted to attack the Zyro family would definitely not be spared. He couldn't help but look at the black-robed man with expectation. The man in black robe said in a calm tone, don't panic. It's because the Zyro family's survival has come to a critical moment, so I showed up. Haven't you noticed that something is wrong with the clan members? I have secretly transferred them in batches. Now you are the only one left in the entire Zyro family. Then, who are they? Zyrozen looked at the clan members outside the house who looked in from time to time, a little confused. Those are the people of the Amon clan. The Amon clan is the most steadfast ally of our Zyro clan. They will stay here as a substitute for the Zyro clan to attract the attention of the Soul Palace. The black-robed man clapped his hands, and an Amon walked in. He had no facial features, and looked about the same size as Zyrozen. Zyrozen was startled when he suddenly saw such a strange figure, but the ancestor Zyro Yuanshan was right next to him, and he forced himself to calm down. In Zyrozen's shocked and stunned eyes, the face of the Amon moved, and slowly a middle-aged man's face appeared. Zyrozen stared at him for a while, and found that it was clearly his own face. I haven't wasted these 1,000 years in vain. This is the ally I made hundreds of years ago. I will tell you in detail about the Amon clan later. After all, you are the patriarch of the Zyro clan. Now you just need to know that they can be trusted, at least more reliable than the ancient clan. The black-robed man said calmly, I'm not afraid of the Soul Palace, but I have to guard against the Soul clan behind me. Although I'm also accumulating strength in secret, I can't fight against them after all. So now I can only hide a little. Zyrozen looked at Amon, who had turned into himself, and asked hesitantly, then, Ancestor Zyro Yuanshan, these brothers who replaced our people. He understood what the black-robed man meant, that is, to let these people from the Amon clan stay instead of the Zyro clan to attract the attention of the Soul Palace and die instead of them. What ally can do this? Will the people of the Amon clan be willing to die? What is the relationship between our Zyro clan and them? Zyrozen was full of doubts. We will die. It was not the black-robed man who answered him, but Amon, who turned into Zyrozen. This Amon showed a warm smile to Zyrozen. I'm very happy that you can care about us, but don't feel guilty about it. Our Amon clan is a little different from normal humans. You can also regard us as a kind of magic beast, a special magic beast. All the existence of Amon is just to make the entire Amon clan stronger. The cooperation with your Zyro clan is a decision made by all Amons. We believe that you can make the Amon clan more prosperous. All sacrifices in this process are worth it. All efforts will be rewarded. The Zyro clan will not let us down, right? The black-robed man said in a sonorous voice. Of course, my promise is always valid. Zan's expression became serious, and he solemnly clasped his fists to Zan. Although I don't know what the ancestor Zyro Yuanshan promised, I, Zan, will remember your efforts in my heart, and will repay you in the future. Zan basically believed everything the black-robed man said. The other party had replaced all the people of the Zyro family, except himself, without knowing it. How terrifying and horrible is such a method? A person with such strength should not have to spend so much effort to play a trick on himself. A small great fighting master. He only had a little doubt at this moment. Although what the other party said was a little untrue, it was absurdly credible. Where are the tribesmen? This is Zyrozen's only concern at the moment. If something can be confirmed from the mouths of the tribesmen, then Xiao Zhan will completely believe everything Xiao Yuanshan said. After hesitating for a moment, Xiao Zhan asked softly, Ancestor Xiao Yuanshan, I wonder where my people are now. The man in black robe chuckled lightly and said, I will take you there in a moment. Now I will explain something to Brother Amon. Old Ancestor Xiao, please tell me. Before I came out, the clan leader told me to obey the instructions of Ancestor in everything. Amon, who transformed into Xiao Zhan, said respectfully. The man in black robe said to Xiao Zhan, Clan leader, please go out for a while. There are some things that are not suitable to be told to you now. Xiao Zhan nodded lightly. He understood the doubts of the man in black robe, and he may have felt that he, the leader of the clan, had not yet been fully recognized by the other party. So after bowing respectfully, he left the room and closed the door. Xiao Zhan in the room said to the man in black, is this your plan? Wu Meng, as the Xiao clan enter the mainland stage, the black-robed man who called himself Xiao Yuanshan, also known as Wu Meng, responded with a smile. Except for the most important Xiao Meng, each of our overseas avatars is just a free move for the main body, and it is best to gain something. I won't be too disappointed without him. My action here can be regarded as a supplement. The Xiao clan is a good card. It not only involves Xiao Yan's feelings, but also uses his identity as the 8 ancient clans. In addition, the most important ancient jade must also be used. Get it? End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.